States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
One more reminder, if you haven't signed in, please sign in on the yellow paper.
Before we start,
Hold on, 1 minute. That's not working.
I'm just gonna make my usual announcement and,
Let's get it on tape.
No, it's not. So if you unplug it, plug it back in. That work, Control Alt Delete is usually step number 2. It's new.
Take it outside and let me run it.
That's the last one. Yeah, it's all.
It's just,
we ready?
oh, you're working on it.
Oh, plugging it in. It is plugged. But that's not it. This is, I've got power. Well, yeah, the mic is working, that's what it's indicating there. It says it's streaming there, but Audacity is not working. And that's
So we're recording.
this is the program that records it. I had Nick come help me set it up this afternoon. We got so much
Ready? Thank you for your patience. This is a public meeting. You're all welcome to be here. We ask that when people speak, number one, if you're going to speak, please state your name so we have it for the record. The other thing is, the other things are, please respect the person that's speaking. Try to keep in mind that everybody has a right to have an opinion. If you don't agree with it, you will have a chance to express your opinion. It is a public meeting, not a public hearing. The difference is you don't have a right to speak, although we extend that right to you, as long as we're all civil. What's to say? But with that said, welcome. Glad you're all here. I would like to introduce a couple of people. Chris.
It's okay, Dennis.
I got my son up.
Testing.
Yep.
Stand up, Chris. Chris Dutel, is that correct?
Dutel.
Dutel. Okay, Chris, sorry. Chris Dutel is our new facilities manager.
Welcome.
First day today?
No,
Yesterday
On
and Tuesday.
Tuesday.
the rain.
and they already gotta show up tomorrow. Yeah.
And then we got the wind today, so.
So I just ask you to bear with me. This week's gonna be real tough one.
I didn't say you could speak.
My goal is to have the cemeteries spotless before Friday when I leave, so we're doing a pretty good job.
Sure you do a great job.
Okay, Chris, thank you.
And one other person that you probably don't know, but our new town treasurer is Mary Vogel. And for those of you who don't know Mary, would you stand up and say hello?
I think everybody knows me.
Very welcome.
And with that, I think we'll get into the hearings, and we have two hearings today. First one is on an application for a automobile graveyard, and it's a renewal. It's from Raymond Frappier.
That's how fresh you are.
Yeah, I said Frappier.
They were doing crappy that.
I always thought that was a nice one. Anyway, it's located on Justin Drive. Anybody here to speak to that?
Lois Hazlett, and my property abuts the property that we're talking about. At least I'm assuming that it's, I usually come to the hearings every year, although I don't think there was one last year. Because I like to find out if there are any changes from previous years in the application. Are there any changes this year that you know of?
Not that I've been made aware of.
Unlimited.
Okay, well, I read the application, and one of the things on the application, the question is, how is the yard screened? And it says it's screened by trees, and, that you can't see it from the highway. I beg to differ, you can see it from the highway, and, even now, when there are leaves out on the trees, you can still see the junkyard. Now, I'm assuming that this is the one that's way down in back that has lots of cars and buses and trucks and whatever in it. Is that right?
It's right front here, it's right up on, right past the steel manufacturing place, going down.
Right down in there. But I thought originally, when I started coming to the hearings, I thought that he could have, up near his garage, he could have a limit of 5 pieces of equipment that he was working on. And, but the junkyard really is down in back, isn't it, Mary? Do you remember that?
It is.
And you really can see it. Plus, I've been told, I haven't been over to check on it, but I've been told that it's not just cars and that kind of thing there, that there actually are refrigerators, which my concern is that if there are appliances, there are things that can leach out of appliances. And he's not that far from the lake. That junkyard's not very far from Messalonsky. The train tracks go in between his property and the lake. And when there have been questions before, the code enforcement officer said that there wasn't any problem with the lake. But I think that needs to be checked, particularly if there are things like refrigerators being put in this area. So, do I need to request that, I hate to do it, it's the next door neighbor, and I hate to do that, but I wanna be sure that we're not getting stuff in the lake that shouldn't be there.
Well, I believe that Gary went down and just checked the yard out. I don't know if he went down and back at the facility. This is a renewal. This has been there, and so we could have Gary go check it out if you should so choose before you issue the permit. But I don't know if he's checked it out further down. All I know is that, from what I understand, he's checked out. He's gone down and looked around the facility proper.
When he checked it out was when they had brought in a lot of fill, truckload after truckload of fill.
I don't know what you're talking
I remember.
I'm just talking about recently, as I understand.
Oh, he did go and check it out?
Recently
He
is
does
what I
every
understand,
year?
yeah.
Okay, well,
But if you wanted to check out the refrigerators and all that, we can have Gary go.
Let me just ask a question, Dennis. Is this strictly supposed to be for automobiles, and when we're in pots, or can we legally put things like refrigerators in?
You know,
It's an automobile junkyard.
it says
That's what it says, yeah.
automobile graveyard. I'm not sure about the white goods. I'm not sure about that. I don't know.
I don't have the code enforcement.
That's what I'll do.
We'll just table this.
So I'll make a motion that we table this item until the code enforcement officer has a chance to weigh in.
Second, also. Dennis,
I have one question before we go, sir. Is there any requirements of long-standing junkyards for soil testing? Owing that there's battery leakage and oil leakage and stuff like that.
There are provisions in the licensing requirements for, I don't know about periodic checking, but they're supposed to take all the oil out and dispose of it properly.
I
Empty the
understand
gas
that.
clean, all of
Does
that.
anyone do soil testing in order to
Not
check
that
and
I'm
make
aware
sure
of.
that that
Not
stuff
that
is
I'm
being
aware of.
done?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, all those, is there any discussion, further discussion on the motion? The motion is to table. Okay, all those in favor? Table to next meeting.
Thank you.
Also,
Motion
this is
to-
a little, we jumped the gun, we got to open the hearing.
So I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Okay. Now, I'd like a motion to close this hearing, so we can go into the other hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Made and seconded, all in favor? Okay, thank you very much.
I'll make the motion that we open the next public hearing.
Okay, this one is on the,
I'll second that.
yeah, thank you. We all vote in favor, five in favor? Five in favor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. This one is on the amendments to the Board of Appeal ordinance, it's actually, it's pretty much a rewrite, is that not right?
Well, actually, the Board of Appeals never had an ordinance. And for years, they were operating under state law that was developed in the late sixties, seventies. And then later on, they developed a list of rules based on state requirements and all of that. That was under Bob Martin's reign. And so when I returned to the management position, I had talked to the then board members about the possibility of reestablishing themselves by writing an ordinance, and that the board was virtually new, and it would help them not only learn about the appeals board process and all of that, but would give us a re-credentialing of the appeals board itself. So that's what the purpose of this is, the rewrite. They did a great job over the last year, they've been working on it, and it'll be going to public hearing. Essentially, that's what you're having a hearing on, is their ordinance.
Anybody here from the appeals board? No? Okay. Anybody care to say anything?
I don't know, may I?
You certainly may, just identify yourself, please.
I'm Norma Blazer, I'm a member of the Board of Appeals, and I just would say that this was presented before the March town meeting and approved to be forwarded at that time, but it was inadvertently left off the ballot, so that's why we're bringing it up tonight.
Exactly.
Any discussion? Yes, more?
Excuse me?
I thought I saw your hand go back up.
No.
Anything from the board?
We've been through this once.
No other comments from the audience? In that case, there's no further discussion. We'll vote to adopt this.
You can't adopt it, it's going to be, it's just a public hearing.
Okay, so, sorry. You want to vote to close the hearing then?
I'll make that vote.
And
No
I'll
motion.
second that.
All those in favor? 5-0, thank you. All right, going to, no, we need a vote to open the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I would love to second.
Made the second. All in favor? 5-0. That one.
Team over here.
All right, back.
It's not a conflict.
What's that?
He said it's not a conflict.
Oh, okay. No old business, what's new business? First item is comprehensive plan review. Dennis, you want to
Well,
present this?
yes, I will. Well, as you know, you've appointed the Comprehensive Review Committee to oversee the comprehensive plan and its implementation. Over the past few months, as I understand, they've been reviewing the plan, and they want to provide you with an update on certain sections of that plan and let you know where they're at. And so they provided you with a written document, and I believe, George, you're here to kind of provide comments and or an overview.
So if I may, good evening. Since all of you know me,
No, identify yourself.
George Seal,
Thank you.
I'm the chair of the committee. So I'm not rude and have my back to people. You unfortunately know me, many of you folks don't. As Dennis said, our committee was established after the comprehensive plan was approved by voters in 2014. Other members that are here, Kathy, as well as Mary Vogel, it's triumvirate, if you will. The purpose and role is, as Dennis stated it, our first task is to monitor progress towards the implementation of the recommendations in the comprehensive plan. The second is to report back to this board with progress reports such as the one that you have before you tonight. And thirdly, to make recommendations regarding the plan's implementation to the select board. We don't have any implementation responsibilities ourselves, per se. That falls on the rest of town government. A similar report was provided to the select board at the time in 2017, so this is at least the second report that you've gotten from us. The town is halfway through the life of the comprehensive plan. It was, as I said, approved by voters in 2014. It expires in 2024. So this is a particularly appropriate time to review the progress made and what remains to be completed. Some of the areas that we've reviewed to date were mostly through the comprehensive plan, at least in terms of numbers of chapters reviewed. Include the recommendations that come from areas such as the historical and cultural resources, community recreation, natural resources, water resources, and this past year we've reviewed economic development recommendations and the housing recommendations. We're currently in the process of reviewing the growth and development recommendations from that chapter in the plan, and we have yet to undertake reviewing public services and management, transportation systems, and farming and forestry. Our findings our detailed findings and our overall findings from the start are presented in a spreadsheet that you can see if you are interested in the details. That's on the town website. It's on the web page under comprehensive plan. I'm not going to go into that in any detail, but we do want to present some overall findings and also some ones specific to economic development chapter and to housing, which we most recently reviewed. With respect to economic development, let me start off with the overall findings that it's sort of a summary of what we found in the past as well as what we've found more recently. And I'm just going to quote from the report. Overall, the committee has found that where specific town officials, departments, or committees have responsibility for implementation, considerable progress has been made or is underway. Where implementation responsibility is not within the clear jurisdiction of existing officials, departments, or committees, implementation frequently falls through the cracks of town government. And this was an issue that we highlighted back in 2017 as well. So that's just, sort of the view from 10,000 feet. With respect to economic development, the plan and the recommendations of the plan focus on maintaining and enhancing the town's current and existing economy and its natural resources base. It puts a lot of emphasis on embracing Belgrade. That Belgrade is a bedroom community now. It is a retirement community, and it's a tourism destination primarily. So the recommendations look at threats to those resources, basically, if you will, and the economy that's based on them. So it includes recommendations to ensure new commercial, institutional, and industrial development is attractive, compatible with neighbors, and does not create health hazards, nuisances, or pollution. The considerable progress actually has been made primarily because of two accomplishments in the last couple of years. The first is the Belgrade, the planning board's upgrade of the commercial development review ordinance, which incorporated the recommended changes that were addressed in the comprehensive plan specifically to that ordinance. That ordinance had considerable problems in the past and its implementation as well. Secondly, adding hours approved by voters to the code enforcement officer for greater compliance and enforcement is a step forward. There are areas where progress has not been made or not much progress made, and those include ensuring new industrial, commercial, and institutional development is attractive. For example, the plan calls for having, I don't remember the exact terminology, but it was sort of like New England style architectural standards. Another would be encouraging future development of that nature to be located in growth districts rather than residential neighborhoods. With respect to housing, the focus there in the plan is affordable housing. The plan's goal is to ensure 10% of new housing be affordable to a household with an income of 80% or less of the town median income. The plan at the time, the information available then was only from the 2010 U.S. Census, so that obviously it's a little dated. But at that time, that is approximately $45,000 per household at 80% or less. At that income level, there are about 168 houses in Belgrade that somebody could afford with that income. The recommendations don't focus on the town taking a real active role in the development of low-income housing. It more focuses on the town not getting in the way, if you will. And that is by allowing more affordable housing options, including mobile home parks, cluster subdivisions, and accessory apartments, not unduly discouraging those kinds of affordable housing. The ordinance that primarily could potentially be sort of a disincentive would be the minimum lot size ordinance and the subdivision ordinance.
George, could I just ask a quick question? What is an accessory apartment?
Grandma, grandpa apartment, where you add an apartment to a single family residence.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like a mother-in-law apartment. Wasn't sure if it was like, handicap accessible apartments or exactly what we were.
Yeah, no, it's just accessory to a single family residence.
Okay.
So here again, the recommendations have primarily been met. There are two exceptions. One is that the subdivision ordinance has not yet been revised to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's on the work plan for the planning board, but they haven't gotten to it. Second is there's no means of tracking the percent. The town has no means of tracking the percent of new housing considered affordable, and that's simply because there's no information provided at the time that a building permit is issued as to the value of the residence being constructed. Now, lastly, we've made 3 recommendations in the report to you, and they're based both on our recent findings as well as past findings. The first is sort of just following through on what I've just mentioned with regard to housing. The first recommendation is that the planning board should start the process of updating the out-of-date subdivision ordinance and incorporating the applicable recommendations from the plan overall, including recommendations from water quality, natural resources, and economic development, as well as housing and growth chapters. Not only is it the current subdivision ordinance not consistent with the comprehensive plan, but it creates a real difficulty for the planning board as well as for applicants in that state law requires any subdivision to be approved by a municipal planning board to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and you're making it very difficult on applicants to know what the standards are by which they need to meet if those standards in the comprehensive plan are not in the ordinance. And not to mention, it makes it probably a confusing review process. Fortunately, as many of you know, I'm also on the planning board. We've only had, in the 4 years I've been on the planning board, we've only had several amendments. We've had no new subdivisions in that time. We're still populating, if you will, all the lots that were created in the late 80s in the big flood back then. So in that sense, we've dodged a bullet. The second recommendation, the select board should discuss and develop an action plan, how to implement the plan's recommendation for the development of comprehensive land use ordinance to bring to the voters. Now, this is a pretty massive task, comparable really to the development of the comprehensive plan itself, and well beyond the scope of any existing town committee or board, including the planning board. It really probably deserves the kind of resources and the number of people involved as was the case in the comprehensive plan. And our last recommendation is for this, you folks, the select board and town manager, to review the implementation plan found in chapter 16, identifying those recommendations that are the responsibility of the board and the manager to implement and develop a work plan to implement those as time allows, and hopefully by 2024. Mary or Kathy, do you have anything to add? Because that's all I have.
No, we did talk about, as we talked about the, developing the select board developing an action plan, and what a huge task that would be, and that would require, input probably from KDCOG or some similar type input.
Well, identifying what tasks need to be done is simple. That could take 10 minutes. Maybe developing a broader plan would take more resources, although I would think that would be well within the capabilities of the town manager. Mary, do you have anything you would say?
Yeah.
If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
You do say in here that in that section, the second recommendation, that we should consider establishing a committee of volunteers. Currently, I can't find the exact wording in it. Is that something that would be appropriate for the can't think of the name of the cog.
KDCOG.
Yeah.
Well, as a technical resource, yes. Our thought was that, if you recall how the comprehensive plan was developed, you had a fairly large steering committee with a wide swath of Belgrade residents involved. I mean, let's face it, this kind of ordinance is very controversial. It's been defeated twice before, and and without that kind of broad base of people involved, it probably doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell. But it also, I think you do need probably would require technical support from KDCOG, much as the comprehensive plan did, and possibly others.
I don't see a problem involving townspeople. You're right, it is a good idea, but I think it's too much of a task for the table. I don't know if we have that kind of expertise in town. It's going to be required to do some of this stuff.
Right, no, agreed.
I agree.
Yeah, no, it would require a consultant or somebody like KDCOG. KDCOG was basically our consultant for the comprehensive plan. And
So the way I envision this, or would look at it, is, first of all, you have to look through the comprehensive plan and set priorities, right? And there's a whole list of things that the board and the town manager are responsible for in chapter 16, as he outlined. On this task, this is a monumental task. I think if anyone can speak to the kind of task it was, Mary Vogel could, because she was the one that organized the comprehensive plan involving literally dozens and dozens of people and meetings, all of that over a 2-year period. So it's a huge task. So the question is that the priority for the town, and should we move forward with that? Because that will consume virtually all of the available volunteers, at least, and then some. And then you will need to target some money toward the acquisition of a consultant or KDCOG as advisors or technical advisors. They do help write ordinances and all of that. This has been defeated twice in the past, and I think in large part it's because there was certainly a lot of involvement, but there were certain aspects of it that some people felt weren't appropriate for the town at that time. Maybe that's my point. So it's a priority issue for me, as I see it.
Good.
still have copies of the original comprehensive plan available for folks
It's in the
to
book.
This is the update, and I did look in the update for
Oh,
chapters.
you mean the one from 2000?
Right, because that's the one that's
2000?
referenced in the chapter
Oh, yeah,
16.
we have copies, we don't have copies here, but we have.
Right, and I was just wondering, because I know that we had some for folks to utilize, but I think that having the update, having the survey, you know, the answers to the survey, having that all together as a package.
I mean, for this meeting?
Not,
Oh,
no.
okay, I was gonna
You're
say, I
like,
didn't.
well, Melanie, there were already 200 pages, what more do you want? No, I just mean that moving forward, and if we set up an ad hoc committee, you know, so that everybody has all the pieces of the information and make it, you know, available to folks in town if they want it.
Certainly.
I think having, you know, the public opinion survey recirculated is a good idea, because this clearly says what, you know, what the vision was at the time, you know, and this was more recent than the original. So there could be a change in public opinion from that point to where we were with this update.
Yeah, I didn't work on that ordinance, I worked on the one in the 1980s, and clearly public opinion's changed since then.
So I think that all of those suggestions are great, should you decide that this is a priority and we move forward, and I think that would be actually the package that you'd want to put together for volunteers for that committee.
Excellent. George, thank you, and the committee, the work you've
Welcome.
done. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
From
Thank you, George.
All right. Next item, Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village.
So,
What,
you want me to,
move forward?
yeah, do you want me to speak about it or not?
We're in Belgrade Lakes Village.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes, a week ago or so, the Friends of the Belgrade Lake Village came to me and asked to be put on the agenda to talk a little bit about what they would like to see in terms of locations of benches, lampposts, bicycle racks, and all of that. They believe that they need your input and support for this and approval. So I asked them to develop basically a white paper with some suggestions, and I believe, Diane, were you gonna carry it forward from there? Or?
I will, if you'll let me.
You want to come right up? I will let you.
I knew you would. Here you
Yeah,
go.
well,
So I'm Diane Oliver, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village, and I have a prop.
What does she have to do?
She
Oh,
says she has
you
a
got a
prop.
prop.
First I thought she said she had a problem.
That's what I thought I heard.
And I have a better packet of information for you, than what you probably had in your booklet. So as Denny outlined,
Thank you.
you're welcome. The Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village are trying to find, locations for benches and bike racks, to put throughout the village as part of the enhancement process. And we have, recognized that there are some town property locations that might possibly be used. And I'm gonna recognize, I have Carol Johnson and Kathy Atkinson here as part of the Friends who might help answer any of these questions or whatever and talk about them. So again, in this, package, we're talking about various locations, that are on town property. And we took some pictures today, and so that's what's in your packet as well. And, they kind of reflect some of the things we're talking about. So if I just work down through the 5 things that I'm hoping that the board will think about and do, is that we're asking you to permit the Friends to possibly put up to 2 bike racks and 2 benches at Peninsula Park. And your first picture is actually a picture of Peninsula Park, which is in the village. And what you're looking at here is as you come down the, now closed roadway into Peninsula Park, looking out over Long Pond. So you can see that I placed our little makeshift bike rack down at the base there, and we might also, at the bottom of that park, you can see that there might possibly be a place for a bench as well. It would be a nice place for folks to sit and look out over the out over the lake. And your next two pictures, your next two pieces of paper show you the bench and how the bench will be fashioned to the ground. And this is just an artist rendition, and it will actually be on bluestone. Didn't do enough copies for the whole audience. So we're asking you to think about the possibility of up to, it may be only one, but it might possibly be two benches or two bike racks or two bike racks and one bench or some configuration thereof. And we're looking to do that at Peninsula Park. And then the possibility, I think, we invited you folks for a walkthrough, and I know some weren't available, or we may have another time that we could be.
I didn't even get notice of that until I read through the note of my book, so I didn't get like an email or anything about it.
Well, I sent it off, I'm sorry, I was told to send it to Dennis and that it would be forwarded to the select board, and I apologize for that if it didn't happen that way. But we can make that happen again. I mean, we could at any time. I included my cell phone number, everything.
Well, I didn't want you to think that we all were just like, not showing up.
Well, I had
I
someone call me at 8 in the morning and say, you're gonna cancel because it was raining, and I'm going, no, we'll cancel at 5 if it's raining.
So
But anyhow,
Mike got it.
that's okay, we
I also was worried about the rain, so.
No.
So the other place that there might be a possibility is on the east side of Route 27, over by the dam and the dry hydrant area. The other possibility is, the town owns a sliver of land, which I think used to be part of the old fire station on Hewlin Road. And so I think what we were looking for is, for the select board to make it, whether we could use any of those spots. And then as we move on to the next thing, I think we've brought this up before, but the Friends want to include a thank you monument to the foundations who put up challenge money, to get this project going, the project being for brick sidewalks and pedestrian lighting, and the folks that made the contributions to that challenge grant. So the very last, or one of the last pieces of paper is kind of like this rock, and I apologize for the way this looks, but this is something that was done, that I've seen done in Booth Bay, and so it's just a nice piece of granite or a nice rock, and it could be much better than this, and then there would just be a plaque put on the front of that might say, thank you to those 3 foundations as they're listed, and to all who contributed to successfully complete this village renovation. And of course, this is very plain, but we were told just the other day that we're gonna be able to work with the landscape architect for the state of Maine, Ken Cooper, and so I'm sure that he would help us with some shrubbery or some ground plantings or whatnot. And where we're asking to put this is within the state's right of way, which is at the corner of Route 27 and West Road. What used to be the triangle is now kind of been consumed because of the new configuration, the way West Road comes out. So there's kind of like a bump out. Yep.
Just one thing, do you have a smaller, the giant map that's in
Yep.
the I'm just, I'm happy to help hold one end, Eddie. I don't know if we have any smaller renditions of it, but I thought it might give people a better idea of exactly, if they're not sure what this piece is that's been reconfigured.
The rock needs to be standard, New England architectural standards.
Of course.
Well, we're hoping to take one like right off a project or something. I mean, it's not like we don't have any rocks in Belgrade.
Yeah, right.
Hello, I'm not gonna go to Booth Bay for a rock. Or Rangeley, or. So, if you're looking at your little picture here, the black and white one that I did, because it wasn't very nice looking. If you kind of look right behind the stop sign, you can see the base of what's going to be a lamppost. And so we were hoping to do something using that lamppost. The sidewalk will be in front of that lamppost. So we were hoping to.
I don't know if this looks
Right here.
So here it is right here. So it actually probably does. So this is, you know, the red house property, and the state right of way now is kind of like this, red dotted line. I'm not sure if anyone back there can see it. Here's the lamp post.
Let's
I
do
can
it.
hold it.
Let's go this way more at an angle.
Okay, but then I can't.
Here,
No.
you go on that side, I'll hold.
Not like that.
I'll hold and you point.
So here, this, this blue dot is the lamppost, and this is where the road, the West Road now comes out. And so this little bit of green space right here is now what's left of the state's right of way, and an area in which the state has said if the select board is so willing to ask for a variance to allow us to put a monument and whatnot in that, within that area.
There's gonna be a lamp post then too, right?
No,
No, there's no.
no, the lampposts are done, yeah, the lampposts are done, so that's the general vicinity, that's the area.
And this, the state owns this, or is this owned by the red house?
No,
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 it's
we've
right
taken care, we pretty much have taken care of that, and while this red line that we're looking at here isn't exactly it's pretty close to where we're seeing things, she's still.
This right here is more or less gonna be where that there, that's where the rock would be right here, more or less.
Somewhere in the,
More down, by this, by that.
This area.
Yep. So that as people are that's it. As people are walking around on the sidewalk, we could create some sort of a little visual right there.
You're thinking
Oh, Hewlin Road?
Hewlin Road right here.
Sorry.
This little sliver
Yeah,
right
see
here is
that
where
one?
the old fire
Whoop,
station
I'm
used to
sorry,
be.
that's okay.
So potentially there could be something there, and then you're
Down
talking
at the
Peninsula
park.
Park, which is down here. So, right.
well, over here too.
Is it right there?
Yeah, it's right
There's
here.
the dam, there's the
Yes,
dam.
that's the overflow, that's right in here.
It's right, this
Yeah,
side.
it's in that.
This
Yeah,
side.
cause it's really not in the project, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, there's on two sides.
So we're talking rock here,
Rock there,
possibly a bench here,
venture bike rack, yep.
bench, bike
Two-
rack here.
Venture bike rack
Yeah.
on the Long Pond side, and then, you know, possibly
Over here.
over on,
Yeah.
This little area right here.
again, not to interfere or get in the way of that dry hydrant by any means, but there is some other,
Elsewhere,
I think those are the
that's
town.
the main stuff, just to give everybody an idea.
And these racks and benches be permanently affixed to the ground.
They will, so, that's why I did what we have here. We had a nice gentleman who, so this is an actual, life-size size. This will be, round pipe, you know, tubular pipe, I think is what it's called. And then this is 1/4-inch sheet metal. And this is the design that we have chosen to do, the pine trees, such as they are, not exactly, let's say, because we haven't gone over to the, design company, to the bike shop, but that's what it is. The hoop comes down into the ground. This shows you that it can be mounted with either a piece of cement this size or 2 round pieces of cement that size that are put down into the ground. I think 10 inches is the recommendation. And then, these little things show you that there are like little divots that go over that then screw down into the cement.
Is 10 inches deep enough that it's not gonna get frost?
This was recommendation from Zero, the bike company that, you know, makes these, and they're actually out in Minnesota, so I mean, they're quite used to, you know, these type of conditions, and I know that they have placed them in Waterville and various other places within the state.
Yeah, I was just wondering, cause I know I did my flagpole a foot down.
Oh, yeah,
and-
yeah.
And it was up, so I
Yeah.
dug it up last year.
Well, and that's what, we even thought, you know, they talked either the 2 bases, and we were a little concerned if you did 2, you might get some unevenness, but if you did the straight slab. And, as for the benches, the suggestion again from Ken Cooper, the, architectural
Landscape.
The DOT.
landscape architect from DOT that we're working with suggests that we do this bluestone process, which is actually 3 pieces of bluestone, that is, you know, again, dug out, there's a base laid down, this bluestone, and then the benches are permanently affixed with bolts to the bluestone.
And they don't walk away that way.
They don't walk away that way, exactly.
My only concern, I mentioned it before, is that Hewlin Road property is pretty small. And, I don't know if you can get in there and set back far enough so you're not gonna interfere with the snow plow or any other such thing. That's something that,
Definitely.
if we give you approval to do that, you need to use a check plan to do that.
There is another issue there, I think, right? Or did we, I can't remember how that turned out, but I think there's a belief that there's a right of way across that property.
But I think the right of way is at the top.
There is a right of way across it,
Okay.
but there should be room to.
So it's between the right of way and then the end of the property, okay.
But there'd be room to put at least a bike rack sideways and get it. It starts at about 18 feet on 27 and goes back 157 feet to 0. I mean, it's this narrow triangular piece.
Is the right of way at the narrow end or the wider end?
Probably be up towards the wider end,
Yeah,
but
it's up
we've
toward
gotta
where the
comply with
driveway is
Where I
to
see
that
her
house.
opening.
We just, you know, if you tell us we can't do it, then there's no sense designing a plan.
I think there'd have to be some discussion with the property owner right there to some degree, so it's, I mean, it is a sliver of land in the town, so. Place it actually, they're comfortable too.
Well, I did take some pictures up there today, but, of course, waiting to the last minute, and today was just a little breezy, and my prop didn't stand up very well. But, and you're absolutely right, you know, and you can pass this around if you choose, but she has, don't look at any other pictures, please. So she.
Start scrolling through.
Yeah, really,
These
yeah,
photos are
really.
lovely.
She has some rocks placed and some trees that she has planted along there. So it's kind of a nice little backdrop. It kind of creates its own little barrier. You know, if you were to put a bench up, I mean, a bench would look nicer facing the stream, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily practical, or it could be the backdrop, you know, and again, a bike rack would just be, you know, to either folks that are going to the new, place that has the 3 little shops in it, or maybe they're coming in on a Sunday, going to the farmer's market, and that's a great place to park their bike and walk to the farmer's market, because it's so crowded down the road. You know, we're trying to come up with places and possibilities and, you know, for these things to kind of help with the change in modality of the village.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Jack?
That should be wide enough, because it was wide enough for a firehouse
I know.
with a town office in there, because I was on the select board when that was at the town office. And it was not real wide, but it was wide enough.
That was just a concern I was gonna ask that.
Okay.
Jack.
It's a tiny house. Right before the report.
I didn't even know it was town property, I thought it was Webster's,
No, it was town property, we found
but
that.
I always thought it was.
So you know, I don't know if you have to do each of these individually, or if we can lump them together, if there's more questions, and then at the very end, you know, we also are asking you to, and we have included it in your packet, this is the contract with which, you know, the agreement that we have with the town to take care of the, brick sidewalks and the sidewalk lighting. And so we just took it upon ourselves, and you'll see in red where we added benches and bike racks. So that would also be included, and it's included in, you know, maintenance and purchase and all of that stuff. So that's kind of the whole packet of stuff we're coming with you tonight.
Diane, would it be possible to put a bike rack at the location of the new park and then not have to have the conversation with the abutting landowners next to the Gillen Road? You could do 2 bike racks in that area. It's not much further down. And it sort of starts at one end and here's.
Really, in a sense, there's a problem with the abutting landowner.
Right, I agree. I guess my sense, is,
Just have the option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will be, like a side bike rack or bench at the park. I mean,
there's going to be amenities within the park, yeah. But we need extras, we need more spaces, we need other spaces throughout the village. I mean, the whole idea is that this, you know, is a revitalization, it's a, enhancement of this whole stretch. So, we actually have, bike-friendly people that are on our committee, that actually use bikes, and they use bikes in our village. And they're not just these guys that, you know, ride for 20 or 30 or 60 miles. They're people that come to the village to shop, to go to the bakery, to go to the farmer's market. And so they kind of like told us that it's important that we have bike racks at locations that are a destination, you know, someplace that someone's going to go. So, you know, we all know, you folks know the value of the Peninsula Park, because you put a public facility there and people go there and picnic and they fish. And so, you know, if you have those things there, then people will hopefully use that bench and bike rack as well. And Newland Road again, as I said, just, you know, the new shop or whatever that's in town.
Question?
Yes, go ahead.
And I got a question for you. Do we have the authority to put stuff on town property?
You have the authority, I believe, to place stuff on town property, whether or not you can, well, there's no acquisition or giving of town property. But I can get a legal opinion should you want that done.
Well, I mean, I know she's talking about the park of it, and we put a bathroom.
No, I'm saying, yeah.
But we did that because of the mess it was.
Well, it's the same kind of thing, for people to sit or place their bike racks. It's town property, you have the authority.
I just would like to make sure we have the authority to do that. That's,
okay.
I mean, I don't think we don't have, but I just think it'd be, if somebody asks, yes, we checked it, it is legal.
Why don't we make a vote pending?
Yeah.
The affirmative answer, so we can take care of it today. Be all right with you?
I have one other question.
Go ahead.
Do we request the state approval for the commemorative rock?
I think we do.
No, I think,
Yeah.
It has to be it has to be a municipality or county or something like that.
That's something I know.
It's a permitting requirement and approval, and because it's behind the granite and all of that, there's no concerns about, it was just lawn right up to the road, there'd be some concerns, but there's no concern, because the granite's 7 inches high, you know.
Okay.
Should be set back low enough so that it line of sight.
yeah, it's not, exactly, and that's why we're gonna use Kent. There won't be any, trees or shrubs that are gonna, you know, grow up and obstruct that view or whatever. The whole idea is just to make something that's attractive, that's easy to see, and also is very much the start of the whole, you know, project right there. Anyone up back, do you guys have anything to add to what I?
No, just the question is, the town has to request the permit, but we'll go ahead and get the paperwork and all the information ready, just either for any to review and then.
You're talking about the rock?
Yeah, for the
To
memorial.
actually
use
use
the
that
stake
piece,
right
to
away.
use that right away. I mean, we're buying the monument, we're doing, you know, all of that kind of stuff, but it's just you guys, the town is saying, yes, we would like to use that space.
So,
How do you want to do this, individually or as a group?
Well, I think individual would be a good idea, cause like, I'm a little hesitant about the Gillen one, like, I'm leaning towards like a bike rack there might be okay, but I don't know about, I wouldn't wanna have, you know, my neighbors put a bench that a bunch of strangers are gonna come hang out on right next to my house, hey, how you doing? You know, but I might be okay if they park their bike there and then keep going, so.
It says permanent bike rack.
Or a bench.
Or a bench.
Or a bench.
So we can handle it, we'll get to that one and make the motion, the way you want to see it.
Well, that's why I was saying, is I think we should
Yeah.
take them
Yeah,
individually.
we will. All right, first one, item one is, up to 2 benches and 2 bike racks at Peninsula Park. This is on the lakeside, on the Long Pond side.
On Long Pond side, actually in what's called Peninsula Park, I would say, yes, please.
Is this, you mentioned potentially some on the Long Pond side and some on the.
But I think that's
That's
listed as
number
a separate
two.
item, that's number two.
That's number two.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, first item, we make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
So moved.
We permit, number 1.
And seconded?
Second.
Made and seconded, any other discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Number 2, permit up to 2 bike racks and up to 2 benches to be placed on the east side of Route 27 by the dam by the dry hydrant, and that will not interfere with the dry hydrant.
I'll make a motion, we accept that we allow that to go forward.
Your second?
Yes.
Okay, seconded by,
Well, no,
Did you
it's
second
just,
it?
she seconded, so just discussion on that. So theoretically, there could be 2 bike racks and 2 benches at that location. Is
I
there
mean, I don't know that it
space
will
allowed there for that
necessarily
much?
happen, but I guess that's what we were just, I mean, we don't wanna make anything look over, saturated or, you know, obnoxious. It's hard right now to look at some things too, cause it's all dug up, the state hasn't put their, surprise, surprise, it's all dug up. You know, the state hasn't put their final, granite in, you know, so we don't know what and we can't do anything about putting benches and bike racks in until they're done, you know, we've already been informed of that, so. I mean, I think we would wait and, you know, only do something that's aesthetically, and by all means, we realize that first and foremost, that's for a dry hydrant.
I think we can, they've done an excellent job elsewhere in the village, I think we can trust their good judgment, I mean, this, not to over.
I just was picturing 2 and 2, and I was like,
I think
that's
it's
a lot.
opposite too.
There's a little more land than you might suspect, actually.
Yeah, but then you got another one, but it's, another one.
All right,
You gotta trust me on that.
that's item number 2. We have a motion?
We did.
Motion.
There's a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? 5-0. Number 3, no, permit a bike rack and or bench to be placed at Wheeling Road.
I'll make a motion, we move that.
Been moved,
I'll second it.
moved and seconded. If you wanted to say something about that.
well, I was just gonna say, now that it's been moved and seconded, can I propose an amendment to that and permit a bike rack to be placed at the Wheeling Road
Remove bench.
and remove and or bench?
Does the person
Is that
make a motion have a
amicable
problem
to-
with that?
Yeah,
Yes,
I believe it's covered because it's and or a bench, so if the bike rack fits and the bench doesn't, then it's covered. If they both fit, then it's fine.
Diane says it's okay if we do just bike rack.
Okay,
I'm fine with the way the wording is. If you want to change it, it can be changed.
No problem.
all right, no problem, then we will amend it to
Permit a bike rack to be
permit a
placed.
bike rack at Wheeling Road property. Any other discussion? We have to have a second for that amendment. Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the amended motion? Thank you. 4, the approval of the state, with the state's approval, permit commemorative rock to be placed in the state's right of way at the bump out.
Make that motion.
Motions were made, seconded. Made and seconded. Any discussion on that? Again, my only concern is, Linus, I can imagine, Ken will be no time for that.
Exactly.
Okay, all those in favor, 4? 5-0. With the state's approval, permit a bike rack and or bench to be placed in the state's right of way at the bump out.
I'll make that motion.
Made and seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Additionally, the Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village request that the select board accept the amended agreement between the town of Belgrade and the Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village that includes benches and bike racks to be covered by capital trust funds.
So again, I'm not sure if in your packet you put the original agreement, okay, and then what we sent shows in red, yeah, how we might add those 2 words.
The only real amendments are the addition of the bike racks.
I think otherwise it's all exactly the same.
I'll make a motion that
Is-
accepts that amended agreement.
I'll second.
Made and seconded, yes.
Before you approve that, you wanted me to do the legal check, so you might not wanna sign this until I get the legal check done.
Correct. Okay. We'll just go over. All right, any other discussion on the matter? All those in favor? 5-0.
Read it.
You don't actually sign it tonight, we'll second it.
No, it's fair, it's a fair question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys,
Thank
thank you very much.
Oh, wait, there's more on your list here.
There is?
You wanted to,
That's what you just did.
discuss discuss the placement of lampposts and crosswalk at the post office property?
Oh, well, we were going to discuss that with you on the walk, but I think it's a moot point. Ernie Martin came and the lamppost is going to stay there. He made a suggestion that he was gonna go back to the office, to the drawing board. He thought maybe he could, slope that landing 3 or 4 feet so that the truck has a space to back in. In other words, so let's say that the crosswalk's coming over here, there's a safe landing spot here, here's the lamppost, and then there was some more of a, landing spot over here. He was going to shorten that up. And he thought he could hopefully legally do that. And so that, I think the issue there was the truck backing in.
So for anyone who doesn't know, there's a lamp post that was proposed by the post office in Belgrade Lakes, but the lamp post in this position where it's proposed now would make it hard for the mail delivery to be able to back into that location. Am I correct?
Yeah, but, I mean, history is that the crosswalk was someplace else, and then it was brought to the attention of the select board, and it got moved to where it is now, and that's where the select board felt it should go. And so now it's just a little amendment.
Right, and the controversy revolved around whether you back straight into that driveway or whether you curve. They build in a sufficient sized,
Drive overable, yeah.
Yeah, drive overable area where a 30-foot long truck could back into that driveway without problem. So I think that was the final agreed upon solution.
How long do you think it'll be before the lamp post is hit?
The lamp post is there.
No, the base is there.
Yeah.
They'll do some damage if they hit that.
And then you just charge it.
We're hoping not.
No, not to the lamp, to the vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
It was discussed
Let's
today,
talk.
whether that lamppost can be moved to the other side of the
Yeah.
crosswalk.
It was discussed, whether it could be, yes, moved closer to, the other neighbor, and he felt, that right of way was already, negotiated and taken care of, and that it couldn't be done.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay.
Thank you again to Friends of the Village
Thank you.
for your efforts and your work. It's really nice.
All right, thank you guys very much. Oh, can I have one more? We, wanted to make a public announcement here before the select board and any members that there will be a ribbon cutting and opening of, what is now called Belgrade Village Green. And it's August, help me, 3rd, which is Saturday, the first Saturday in August. That also happens to the Beanhole Bee Supper. This is going to be at 3 o'clock. There will be music, there will be ice cream giveaways, I'm not sure what else. And then the Beanhole Supper thereafter. So it kind of like starts the use of the park.
I understood you were gonna turn the deed over then too.
Sure, I probably.
Well, that was my question, is whether or not that was a signing that was gonna take place at that time or what.
I believe so, we just need to make sure all the work has been done. Totally
Because that was
finished.
the whole, yeah.
That was the whole purpose of it.
The whole purpose was to make sure the work within the park was done and ready to go.
No, it's postponed, it's not ready yet.
And the fact that the people that have done and purchased and done all the work on the park are not around until that time. Okay?
Thank you again.
All right, thank you guys very much. Thank you, Carol.
Let's take a brief break while Melanie gets her water. And we'll come back on the ambulance. 5-minute break. 5-minute break.
They're still here?
Sleep yet?
Very interesting.
We last or?
No.
Bathrooms around here?
Right.
Straight ahead?
Door and then to your right,
Thank you.
on the left. No, to your right on the left. To your right on, okay.
I get a word of you. Finding doors open usually.
Family coming in.
So when are you back down in Boston?
Well, I was supposed to go Friday.
Yeah.
I canceled. It's Memorial Weekend, can you imagine me leaving here at 3:30 in the afternoon? It's gotta be 12 hours, hit the whole day. Down there.
Good for you.
So I'm going down on June 5th, 4th, the 5th. I have an appointment at 2:45 for breathing test again. And then I have an appointment the next morning at 9 o'clock, I'm staying all night. With the.
How you doing?
I'll tell you what I've had.
I'm doing okay.
You know, I read the medicine, you know, one of the medicines you take for the rest of your life, prednisone, imagine that.
Ah.
So if I'm already taking it, what the hell's the difference? Oh, you got it, there's 4 medicines that you
Yeah.
take. And, that recommendation.
Yeah.
With prednisone, if I break a bone, you know what, they probably can fix it. Ain't much less than anything. I am 100%.
You look better.
I am.
But you did send me that one.
But, you know,
Cause I didn't know you gave me the printed copy.
Well, that's one of the questions I'm gonna ask you.
oh, good question.
Yeah, I've asked them funny, when they told me I'd read the thing, that really got me. I said, I don't wanna know what you want. I don't wanna know. Well, you gotta read it, she said, you know you gotta read it. Long question to tell.
Alright,
I did read it, but I'm not telling.
research is over. We have a resignation, next item, resignation, Brian Cody.
Yes.
Let's speak to that.
Well, he offered his formal resignation to the library committee. There's not much more to do than say that. We plan to send him a thank you.
Make a motion, we accept it?
Yeah. Any second?
Yeah, I did.
Any seconded? Any discussion, all those in favor? Nothing, thank you. Next item. Let's see.
In the next budget, we're gonna have more of these little thicker things for separating.
Next item is the mooring committee appointments.
Right. So, as you know, a month and a half or 2 months ago, you approved the establishment of the moorings committee. And I've been, I sent out requests for membership. We had a few people that have volunteered to do the various positions. So what we have tonight are, we have various members here. We had, and I've asked for the associations to come up with a person they would nominate. So the committee has 9 members, and that includes the CEO and the town manager. So there's 7 appointments. One would be from the Belgrade Lakes Association. Pat Donahue was chosen by the Belgrade Lakes Association to represent them. And I believe his information is in the packet. If it's not, then he's the one that came in late with the.
His is not.
Okay. Did you get a copy tonight? Okay, but most of you know Pat. If you don't, it's not there. She
Yeah,
did.
no.
Okay. One member from the Seven Lakes Alliance representing other area lake associations. So the Seven Lakes Alliance chose Lenny Reich to, as their person to nominate as a member of this group. There were 2 members from year-round permanent residents. Now, there were 3 people who volunteered for that. Kathy McCallway, Sean Grant, and Mandy Grant. And because we only have 2 positions, then I put all 3 forward, and then that's up for you to decide, okay? And then 1 member from the Belgrade Lakes Region Business Group would be Mike Gorino. Mike's here, I believe.
Yes, it is.
And two members who are seasonal who are seasonal residents. The one person that we have was Jim Hillier. I don't believe enough of them come back to hear about it, so we have one vacancy there for a seasonal resident. So that would give you six, 6 people to appoint tonight. The only issue that you have before you tonight is you have 3 requests for the permanent residents, and there's only 2 slots.
Is this the same Sean Grant that we're involved in litigation with?
Yes, it is. But that doesn't necessarily, no.
It doesn't carry over.
I don't understand what you're saying, it doesn't carry over.
It's irrelevant.
This is a volunteer group, it's getting together.
One doesn't affect the other.
If I could, you can have legitimate disagreements with the town. You can have legitimate disagreements. That should not affect your ability, even if it's in court, should not affect your ability to be a member of a volunteer group. At least that's my understanding.
And that understanding comes from
Well, just from my association with the town for years, I mean,
statute, law?
well, I have not done a legal background check. I don't think it's necessary, but that's up to you. If you feel that there's a.
I'm just curious,
No, I'm just saying,
you know.
I can check it out if you want, but, I don't think there's a problem.
Melanie, do you have a question?
One of my other things is that we don't have Pat Donahue's information. Is Pat here?
Pat's not here, he was supposed to be here, but you will get that.
So that's the other tricky piece, is that we have decided historically as a group that folks were here for their appointments, so we can thank them for their.
Yeah, well, he was supposed to be here, and I don't know what caused him.
Well, we can go ahead and vote on the applications we have, and
That was gonna be my suggestion, is that,
then we can do Pat's at a later date.
and we'll have another seasonal resident.
He does have an
hopefully at some point.
application here, she's gonna make copies.
Oh,
And I would like to, I would also like, I'll withdraw my name from the,
Oh, that's up to you guys, I just wanted to, yeah,
I think one of them.
yeah, I think one of you could probably handle it, but
Sean is more.
I wanted to be fair in terms of presenting all the names.
That's fine, I'll withdraw mine.
You can still have your influence as a member of the public anyway, so.
I'm happy
for
to,
me, it's.
I think she has a little bit more.
I was trying to stay away from.
I'm happy to serve in any other capacity as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
If we didn't have enough people, we would both be more than happy.
Thank you very much.
We'll get to these one at a time.
Did you ask, what was your question?
she raised the issue that Pat wasn't here,
Oh, yeah.
we're getting a copy of his,
Well, we
application.
can table him until next time.
Well, she's got a copy of his
We have a copy
application.
of it, so we can go ahead.
Is Kath
No,
here?
not.
Kathy McCall raised her,
Well, he's not here. We gotta see it. We'll just
not Carol.
take it.
And we have to find another,
I'll be reopening that issue with the, seasonal.
yeah, they're all back in town now, so.
What, the real concern, as you know, June 1st is when well, whatever, right, when I'm leaving. So, I would like to get an organizational meeting together so people get a sense of where the whole committee's headed and stuff. Or we could have that meeting after you select a new town manager, and then I could come to that meeting and do that. It's either or, it's up to you guys. But that was one of the reasons why I wanted to move this forward.
Why don't we take appointments individually, and I'll just want to motion if we accept.
Would you like the gavel?
I thought we were.
I'm out of here.
I was gonna make a motion to move along here.
Well, then,
I'm the vice chair, so I can go ahead, can I? And let's do it.
You kids gonna fight, you're gonna take it outside.
shall we just vote on this as a group, or do you want
I'm
to?
fine with that too.
Let's, we usually like to do them individually, so let's go, starting at the top. Kathy McCallum.
We don't wanna go down and go under the committee, we'll have 9 members, and just run through it that way.
Okay. Whatever, I don't care.
I make a motion that we table the 1 member from the Belgrade Lakes Association until that person can be present.
Maybe I'll second that.
Good. And,
Voting on that.
Lenny Rice is listed under DLA, and it should be under Seven Lakes.
It's under 7 months.
Yeah, see,
On here, it's just, it's under.
well, I sent out an email,
I saw that, but it's on here, it's just coming there. All right. So we're voting on everybody except for Pat Green, Donnie.
and then Sean and, Kathy McElway would be the two, because Mandy.
Yes. All right, so we're voting on the group, is that correct?
Yeah, Jim, are you here? Earlier? Yes, okay.
All right. Okay, motion's been made to accept everybody on the list. Samantha Grant has withdrawn. Everybody on the list except for Pat Donahue, who is not present. Okay. Motion to that effect. We do have a.
Thank you, good.
Okay, we got it.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay, made and seconded. Any other discussion, please? Let's vote. All those in favor?
I'm in favor of the dual committee, but that's as far as I'm gonna vote on. I think this is ridiculous. Yeah,
You're abstaining?
no, I'm gonna vote for it, cause I don't want it to get out to taxpayers Sunday.
All right,
See
so
what they think about it.
you're voting for it. You're voting in favor.
Yes.
5-0. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. All right. Back to the agenda. Thank you. That's why everybody who volunteered. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you guys for volunteering.
Can I ask a question? So, I don't know when these meetings are gonna be, but
I have your email address, I'll be
I'm
sending.
just, since I'm on the school board, if that means it might conflict with that, which is always Wednesdays.
Right,
Just-
well, the way it generally is set up is I'll send out a request, out for a couple days, and then
Okay,
people,
thanks.
and then you can say yay or nay.
Okay.
And you'll all need to be sworn in at some point in time. Come down to the town office, Cheryl will swear you.
Cheryl will swear at you.
Thank you very much,
Good night.
folks.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.
I'm gonna read to,
We're back to the agenda. We have a reappointment Board of Appeals, Jay Bradshaw. You all know Jay, he's a reappointment.
I'll make that motion.
What's that?
But
Okay,
Nate, I'll second it.
now can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why is he getting back on?
Did you ask him?
Huh?
Ask him, I don't know. He must want to. This is like, it just came up when I just saw it when I was on the agenda.
Let me ask another question. Is there another case coming up that, the Board of Appeals?
I don't think so. I don't think there's any activity before the Board of Appeals.
I don't like this coming on and off when stuff, but whatever, that's,
It's a reappointment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know, he got off it.
well, he got off and then he got back on it temporarily,
That's right.
and then he's asked to be permanent.
So that's fine. I don't see a problem.
He
Okay.
got off because his wife, well, there was personal
Yes,
issues.
All right.
that's fine. I'm just,
We
that's
have-
just a question.
Okay. We have a request for reappointment before us. Did you move it?
I moved it.
Who seconded it?
You did.
I did. Been a long night.
We can play the tape back if you want.
All right, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor? 5-0, thank you very much. You'll contact Jay and I'm going to be sworn in. Good. All right, Village Green Park, oversight responsibility.
Right, and as you know, the town accepted the warrant article and the donation of the park, now to be known as Village Green. We discussed preliminarily, who would be the oversighting of who would oversee the parks operation and all that. It seemed as if the Parks and Recreation Committee would be the obvious choice, and we kind of threw that out, but it was decided to postpone that for a while. It's back before you because if there's any changes that need to be made or anything that they'd like to do in terms of the agreements they sign and all that, they would like to be working on that soon. So I don't think there's any changes that would have to be made, but nonetheless, they would like to see that. So it's before you to decide whether you want Parks and Rec Committee. I don't know what other committee you would have, facility maintenance, I suppose that group could oversee it, but it's up to you. And I think it's appropriate for the Parks and Recreation Committee to.
I'll make a motion that we appoint the Parks and Recreation Committee.
I'll second that.
Is there other discussion?
I think we had asked both Lily and Linda if they thought the Board of Parks and Recreation would,
They nodded their head.
and they nodded their heads yes in agreement that they would be willing to take that on.
It's a logical, that's the most logical. And then this way they can work on it and start working on whatever rules that continue to follow. Have to come back to us. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? 5-0, thank you. All right, responses to RFPs.
You wanna take the Pike, the road paving RFP
That's what I was
first?
gonna ask, is there anybody here for updating other than paving? Okay, why don't we jump ahead and do paving first? Okay with everybody on board? Yep.
Yes.
All right.
So, we received 3 bids. The bids were from Allstate Asphalt Inc., Northeast Paving, and Pike Industries. I had sent you an email, and I believe I gave you a copy of an email that I sent, which indicated the following, that the bid prices in terms of total bid for Allstate Asphalt was $1,027,374.10. Northeast Paving was $1,174,000. And Pike Industry was $988,913.85. So it seemed pretty straightforward in terms of the selection of the bid. However, I forwarded you an email I received yesterday afternoon, and there are some questions that were asked by Allstate concerning what appeared to be a low bid nut. Morris, did you want to address from there? So what I believe in Allstate, where's Allstate?
I'm right here.
Right here.
Yes.
I believe what Allstate is saying is that we worked out certain quantities of materials, et cetera. And if you look at, if we took Pike's quantities and used our pricing, we'd be the lower bid. I think that essentially is what they're saying.
Correct. Yes.
And,
Yes.
And so the real question is then, do we look at what Pike's bid says, or do we look at what another view of Pike's bid says? And to that, I'm going to turn this over to Morris, our road commissioner.
All right, Morris, bring it.
We usually go by the ton prices, and that's cut and dried, because when you pave, you're gonna put 2 inches down, an inch of surface, so that you have something to go by. When the shoulders come, when you're going the shoulders up, you're gaining width, and it's about a square yard. So when you go and put your shoulders on after the road's been paved, you have a uniform width you wanna go by, but it's in and out. Some places the pavement, the shoulder would be up, so that you're not using much material up underneath the wing. Then you come to another place with dump it raw off. So I don't know how we can really figure on the tonnage of square yards myself. I have to have an explanation.
So, if I may, so Morris, based on what you just said, who's in your opinion, would be the lowest bid?
Well, bottom line, Pike would be, if we go that route.
Do both bids meet the specifications in the RFP?
Yes.
They're both, nobody's taking a shortcut or anything like that. You gentlemen, Mike?
Yes.
So, what I understood, and again, I'll say it again, so you can nod your head or you can speak. Allstate Materials estimated a certain tonnage. And that resulted in a certain bid price that was roughly $35,000 or so over Pike Industries. So that was the tonnage they estimated, and that's how they placed their budget bid. But they're saying now, as I understand, that yeah, but if we would have used Pike's tonnage, we'd have come in more. That's what I understand them to say essentially. So the question is, what do you do? do you get that second bite? I don't know. Did you wanna,
Yes, can I say something?
Can I
Oh, go
just
ahead,
ask one
yeah.
question? Do we have a copy of the RFP?
it's in your book. Oh, the RFP,
Oh, God, I've had a heck of a time trying to find stuff.
the RFP was sent out, and, I don't know if it was in the, it's not in the book. It was sent out
You wanna
to
grab-
everyone prior to, you got a copy of it right there?
Jack, do you mind if I just make a copy and I'll throw it up here?
We can do that, Smelly, that's not your job.
Yeah, but we everything stopped. You want to speak, sir, at that place over the record?
Yes, I'm Peter Callan with All States Asphalts. And, was it Pike Industries, All States Asphalts, and Northeast Paving, we all had different quantities as tonnages, and square yardages. It looks like we all had different square yards. And I don't think Pike had a square yard price, they just had a total price for reclaim and shoulder in their bid. We had a square yard price, and I don't think, did Northeast have a square yard price in there? I don't know if you guys are or not. But, so, which we did, but if you look at the total price for the reclaim and shoulder price, for each road, we're cheaper than Pike. And all of them, and if you put our unit pricing towards Pike's their tonnage and quantities, we're cheaper by $6,600. Now, if you put Pike's unit prices with our quantities that we had figured, we're still cheaper than they are, $6,300 cheaper. Now, I talked to Morris this afternoon, and I know $6,600 could go a long ways for ditching and everything else. Because he said you guys roughly have like a certain budget to go by, and whatever the 3 roads combined price takes, he has the leftover of it to do whatever he needs to do for the maintenance. So the reason why all states, we believe we're lower, because if you add our quantities and our unit pricing and put Pike's unit pricing with our quantities, we're cheaper than they are. And vice versa, if you put our unit pricing towards their quantities and their pricing, we're still cheaper. And which you should have, there's a spreadsheet that we had printed off, and it shows that outlined right in the spreadsheet. And those are Pike's quantities and the unit pricing, and ours quantities and pricing from the bid package that was opened. So, and either if we use less tonnages, we still will be cheaper, because even in our unit pricing, we use less quantities with Pike's numbers, and we were still cheaper. Then we used higher quantities that we had in our bid with Pike's unit pricing, and we were still cheaper. That's all I have.
So the one question that came across my mind, and I'm not, I don't know how you guys bid these things, is so taking that into account, well, I guess taking into account the square yards, the setup, all of that somehow comes into play. Your mobility, your mobilization, all of that.
I have.
So I don't know how Pike does that.
So, Jason Griffiths, I'm with Pike Industries. I know you got a bunch in front of you. I guess I'd like to add that, between the 3 contractors, ourselves and Northeast, there was a difference of 137 tons total for the whole project. Between us and All States, they had an extra 650 tons for the total, for their total. But if you look at everything from a unit bid price, we're essentially cheaper on the hot mix items. And according to note 5 in your package, hot mix was the idea, or the main focus for the bid. To answer the question, that uses a lump sum that he has on his spreadsheet for the reclaim and shoulder gravel, in the back of our bid proposal is the square yard price. Shoulder gravel is broken down by the ton. So essentially all we would do is bill for what we used. That's how we provided that with the bid package. So we broke it down road by road by road. And essentially it was estimated at 3 feet wide shoulder on either side. And I think knowing that what's out there, we may only get a foot in based on ditches and things like that. So that's probably gonna underrun significantly. So I don't think to use that spreadsheet and compare a lump sum to a lump sum is an accurate assessment.
You just identify yourself for the record.
Sure, Jason Griffiths, Pike Industries.
I guess my question is, to Morris, I guess, so there's more tonnage of base and surface and, on all these roads proposed by Allstate. When you say it was 100 some tons?
Between us and Northeast, there was a difference of 137. Between us and Allstate's is 648 tons.
So, I mean, did they overrun the tonnage? I mean, obviously with more product in the road, we wind up with a better road, but is it overkill? Is it, you know, as Pike says, they have less tonnage that's going into the road. But is that the minimum that's necessary, or?
Well, the roads are reclaimed, so they're uniform, pretty much. It's not like going over an old road like Route 11 was, or whatever.
Yeah.
But once it's ground down, they all equal.
Yeah.
Then you put 2 inches of base down, which is easy to keep track of. Then when it's all done, you set back, put another inch of surface on it. And then you wait 8 to 10 days, whatever contract says, and put the shoulders on. And using the shoulder machine or the wing, it follows the contour. Like they said, that some places only gonna take a foot, you're gonna be up against the dirt bank, or it might take the full 3 feet in places, if there's a runaway for it.
Morrison, in your opinion, the amounts proposed by Pike, are they sufficient to do the job to the level that you want to see?
I believe so. I mean, both these contractors have been top notch, so it's hard to tell which one would be the best one. We go by the low bid. That's Pike, you know, on the bid, it's $988, something change. And the other one is just a little more. So the breakdown is gonna be up to you people, and these people give you more information if they got it to pass out. It's
One other thing I'd like to add is there was a pre-bid for here that both Northeast and Pike showed up and met with Maurice. I don't know how it was handled otherwise, but it was looked at as a group to have a discussion, so.
You know, when I put a bid out, if I'm the low bidder, I get the job. If I don't get the, if I'm the high bidder, I don't get the job. It's the way it is. I mean, if I need all the specs.
Any comments around that? I know you sent us an email.
No, I think it's pretty well covered. There is one point that I would like to add, and it's not in reference to these two contractors. It's in reference to the difference. I heard it stated here, and I may have misheard, or it may have been misquoted, that there is so much in our job for the paving, which we're talking about here, and the balance of what was appropriated was left over for the town to do its work. I don't see it that way. I think that balance from the low bid is around $334,000 if I figured it properly. I think the town should be making an estimate for its work and it being looked at as another contract for that kind of money, not just as a slush fund to use up because that's the amount that was appropriated. I feel very strongly about that.
Right, and Jack does feel strongly about that, and that's why we worded the warrant article the way we worded it. The way the warrant article is worded, we take the bid, that's the lowest bid. We don't go out, other than the other costs associated with the, you know, tan note and all of that. We don't go and bid the full price. We bid them, if it's the $1 million, whatever it is, we bid we take that $1 million, that 300 another million, we don't even borrow. It's not even in the picture. I think what was referenced was that, say we take $1 million bid. If there's 10,000, we go out. If there's $10,000 left over, that reverts back to the paving fund. I think that's essentially what has been hit, historically, the way it's been done, and I think that that's what was intended in terms of the conversation. It's not that 300,000, Jack, because we already said in the warrant article, we're only gonna bid the amount that the bids come in. We're only gonna go out and tan the amount that the bids come in. So if there's $5,000 or $6,000 left, then that amount, based on what we bid, because there might be something left, that's residual. But
That's for paving.
for the roads, that's the way the water article is written.
Okay.
But we're talking about paving here tonight.
Yes, that's exactly the way if you read the article in here, remember we had this discussion?
Yeah, and we raised an amount.
We appropriated a certain amount, and then we said, hold on, I got it right here.
I think that's a separate article along with everything.
Okay, we pointed the amount of, I'm trying to find it. In any case, what we did, we said in the article was essentially that if the bids came in and the bid was $1 million, we allocated 1.3 million, I think it was. We were only going to go out and tan the $1 million. We weren't going to tan the full amount.
But my point is, we're only bidding on the pavement. We're not bidding on the $334,000 between.
That money isn't even gonna be borrowed, it won't even be available. Remember, this is all by a tan.
Well, how is the town doing its work? How is the town doing its work?
We have another article for the town's work, that's an annual maintenance budget that the town does, and we have a certain amount of money put in that was prep, I think, right? Did we put a certain amount in for prep?
Is that the way it's being treated?
Yeah, so we take the bid, the amount that was input in for prep, which I don't think was more than, what, $50,000 for prep or less?
It's broken down on each road.
Yeah, it's broken down on each road, but I don't have the total.
So we're not going to spend any of the article money on town work. Is that what you're saying?
On the town work that's in the article,
Yeah.
prep work, there will be some money expended, but not, I thought your concern was 1.3 million, we were gonna go out and borrow that money and that remaining 300,000.
No, I'm talking about the difference between the low bid for paving.
Yeah.
And the article.
Yeah.
$300 and some thousand.
There won't be $300,000 because we're only gonna go out and borrow the amount of money that's necessary to do the roads, as the way the article's written. So we'll take whatever the paving bid is, whatever the prep work is, whatever the TAN note interest is, we'll borrow that amount. That's always told the town we would borrow.
What control do we have on the town work not eating up the difference between the paving and what's in the article? What control is there?
Well, I don't understand the question, because the control is we're gonna only put in the amount of money necessary for prep work for the paving project that he has to do.
But we have no budget for the prep work. We just have the difference.
No, it's in.
Okay, good. So we, this really, I don't think it's germane to what we're gonna have to do now. It's important.
I don't either, but you asked the question whether I had anything to say, and I said.
You made a mistake. I forgot. Thank you. I have one question about this. Yes, sir, go ahead.
So, on this paperwork I have here, so there is a figure that's $6,600 and change lower than Pike's bid, which uses the same tonnage as Pike's, and that lower figure is also, that's not that hasn't actually been bid. The bid amount is the $1,027,000 figure from Allstate. They haven't actually bid the lower figure using the pipe tonnage, correct?
Right.
So the two bids that we have in front of us are the 988 bid from Pike and the 1.27 bid from Allstate. Those are the two that we have to go by. This figure that Allstate could be $6,600 less than Pike if they had bid it that way isn't an actual bid. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, it's just a figure for our for us to see. Correct?
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Is it worth our time to, I don't think it's possible. We have to reopen the bidding to have them bid the $6,600 less figure than Pike. And we're not about to do that, are we?
Well, that's not fair.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
I know it's better for the town, but yet it's not something we can do.
You get one bite at the apple, one bite at the apple.
That's right. So I guess, that being stated, then, we go with a little bit on this.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
This gentleman has something else to
Yeah.
say.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd be Callahan again with Allstates. The only argument we have is they gave distances on the roads. We came up with our own quantities, Pike came up with theirs, and Northeast came up with theirs. So we didn't bid quantity to quantity, we just bid road distances. So we came up with our own quantities, they came up with theirs, and vice versa with the other bidder. They were 100 and something tons different.
Sure.
And we don't know how they came up with their measurements. We don't know how Lane Northeast did as well. 3 of our other people in our office came to ours and did ours, and we're a lot closer to our numbers. So we don't know what happened. We just want to make apples to apples, is because other companies come in and do 500, 600 tons cheaper, and if you guys are going to go low bid, well, they're going to get it no matter what, and then you guys go over cost. Not saying Pike did that or Northeast did it, but anyone can do that, because we didn't have exactly quantities to bid against each other. We just had distances, okay? And that's what our argument is. We just would like, for you guys just to look at that, that's all, yeah.
From what I see, there's something to be learned here.
Yeah.
Forward, when it comes to-
Yeah, that maybe in the future or something, yeah,
All right,
yeah.
let's move on.
Yeah.
But if you have measurements, you figure the quantity, correct? That's how I do it, at least.
Yeah,
You
but-
have the measurements.
A lot of time, yeah. I could figure out tons, they could figure out tons differently. It's tons of pavement, that's the only thing,
I do it every day. Mine's
I do
more
too.
quicker than the other guy.
Yeah, right, and it's all different,
And I lose a bid.
Right, right, and that's what our just argument was, so, right.
That's what it is.
Well, that's certainly something that we can look at, putting our piece forward for this. in the
Yeah,
future.
cause if you guys end up going over the tonnages that they have in their bid, you guys will be over their cost, over 98. Just like us as well too, you know what I'm saying? Because it's always different in the field, no matter what you do.
Let's move on, let's get this over with.
Let me just ask, so the $988,000 bid that's Pike, is that a solid figure, or do we go over that, or do we go under it, or, potentially go under it if there's less used on the shoulders or what have you, right?
It's a unit price bid, and if you look at unit to unit, we're less than them. So
Sure.
whether it goes up or under, it's a sliding scale is the way I look at it.
I guess my question is, are we
We should be able to stay right in tune with that, because we're fine grading everything, so everything's on a level playing field. It should take out all the variance.
They were only cheaper with tonnage of pavement, we were cheaper square yard.
I see.
And a square yard's a big item, so,
Okay. You have something new to add, or is it the same thing?
I'm gonna let it go.
No, we need to hear
I'm
it.
fine, I'm fine.
All right,
He's just gonna sit here and stew about it for a little bit, but it's
I don't wanna
okay.
hear it later, but
all right, so please tell us, please tell us.
No, go.
All right, so they make a motion here,
All right, I make a motion that we accept Pike's bid.
I'll second that.
made and seconded, any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Okay, just to make it clear. Right, whatever the bid price is the money that we're gonna have available, period. All
So
right,
don't go over budget.
so
Who's in
that was the
extra?
point, don't go over budget.
Well, I was gonna say that, but I didn't wanna bite the tongue off.
Okay,
By your force.
the motion's been made.
Can I just say one thing? I don't want to,
Is
both
it-
of our bids have escalation in it, so it depends on the.
Asphalt price,
Yeah.
we understand.
So just keep that in mind when we get to the third road, maybe we need to shorten it up. If liquid's going up or stayed down, or it's going down, maybe you can go a little longer. But
It's going up.
I don't wanna
That was Iran,
mislead
it's going
anyone.
up. You know,
Sorry.
something there.
All right, motion's been made and seconded to go with Pike Industries.
For paving.
For paving.
What?
Pike Industries bid
Paving.
for paving.
Okay. All those in favor?
I got
Vice Chair, I just wanted to make it clear. We're gonna take this bid, we're gonna add to it any prep work per road that, Morris has to do, the interest cost, and the legal cost for preparation of the bond, or the TAN, and that'll be the total price of the, okay.
Appreciate you guys coming in.
All right, thank you guys for your time.
And I appreciate
Yes,
you hanging
have a
out
good
the
night.
whole rest of the meeting. Have a good night, gentlemen.
All right, see you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Center for All Seasons exterior maintenance.
Okay, as you know, Article 31 of the 2018 town meeting, we asked the town whether or not they would allow the select board to do an investigation in the cost of exterior repair for long-term maintenance to reduce the overall long-term cost of the maintenance. So we've been working on that. Last year, we couldn't get anyone to come in and really give us any sense of what the prices would be, other than the materials price, which we worked with Hammond, and they're giving us a really good deal. So, having said that, this year we put out a request for proposals, and we received 2. And with that, Ernie, I'm gonna turn it over to Ernie, because Ernie was on the original group. I was not able to go around the building with the individuals that made proposals, and I'm gonna turn it over.
You know, as you can see, Main Energy Pros, you know, had the bid. I mean, both of these contractors, you know, we went around the building, you know, it was apples to apples.
Somewhere there's a yellow tab there. I can't-
Can't explain
We need
why
to get
there's such a huge difference between, you know, a huge increase with the other. So, Main Energy Pros has done other work for the town. And, anyway, part of this is that this isn't a full cost. And part of that is because the north side of that building has been perennial ice and snow and water damage and, you know, problem. The roofing over the kitchen and the storage room, and it's just always been a problem. And my feeling was, there's a couple of things. My feeling was that it made no sense to spend money redoing siding on that side of the building if there was a chance that we could fix that side of the building at the same time. So basically, this proposal by Main Energy Pros was for 3 sides of the building. We haven't specifically looked at the cost for the north side of the building. I had some folks from Hammond's come in, and they took some pictures and some measurements. We talked about it, and the roof line needs to be changed, and potentially we might add on some. We desperately need more storage at the building, and so potentially we would add on double the size of the storage room that's at the end of that addition, past the kitchen, to the corner of the building. I'm just guessing that, you know, that the redo of that end of the building to include the siding, the re-siding of it, you know, could cost around $50,000. That's a ballpark idea, but it would solve an ongoing problem that we always have at that side of the building that just was poor design from the get-go. And you know, I got an email back. I talked to Al Feather at Hammond's, and I got an email back from him that they don't actually they do residential drafting. And so this is a commercial building, so they recommended that we hand it off to Coffin and have them, you know, just engineer what the correct fix would be at that end of the building, upon which time I would, you know, have, and I talked about this with Main Energy Pros, that they would bid that end of the building to be added to this. But, you know, the same is true of Main Highlands Contracting. So, you know, if we were gonna have them, they bid on 3 sides of the building too. So we're still better off with Main Energy Pros to do this work. We're talking about doing this work after Labor Day in general, because we didn't want to have the building sort of tied up during the rec program season. And we don't necessarily have to do the work in the summer, and it's actually better for them to do it in September. And by that time, I'm guessing by sometime in June, perhaps, we could have, commercialized, engineering, done for the north side of the building to fix that problem. And then, so that's the north side of the building, and that's how that is. This amount will change, and will go up. I'm confident that Maine Energy Pros could do a good job with that, and it wouldn't. When I say $50,000, I'm just guessing at that, but because we're talking some additional construction, not just taking off the old siding and putting the new on. Both of these, there's a major issue with this building in that it's a heat sieve. I mean, heat just leaks out of this building. We spent a fortune in oil and so forth. And there's ways to curtail that. One way is when we replace the siding, when we take the old siding off and replace the siding, we would add a little, like at least a half inch of styrofoam insulation between the backing board and the new siding, which would help to tighten up the heat loss. There are some fake windows in the three sides of this building that are just there for looks. Many of them have been cracked and broken by ice falling off the roof, and it just makes no sense to replace those windows. They don't even go anywhere in the building. They're just for looks, and potentially we lose heat out of them because they're actual holes in the wall. And so the windows that they were there for continuity's sake when the design was made, apparently, but the windows that provide light into the upper part of the gym, you know, they're there for a reason, and of course they're going to stay there. But so let's see this. Down the line, and I'd love to see this happen this year, but I don't know. We should get an energy audit of this building, find out where we're deficient in insulation, especially in the upper part of this building, because one of the main reasons why we have so much ice and snow and buildup, huge ice dams on this building in spots, that on the front part of the building over the porch that slide off with such force they've broken the beams in the roof over the porch. And part of the reason that we get that is just this tremendous heat loss that we get. And so that would be an additional cost as well, but well worth the cost down the line. We're talking to Bruce Deluche, who's the plumber and heating, who's worked on this building for the town. He suggests that, I mean, there are, especially in the gym, there's programmable thermostats and so forth that we don't have, that we should have, which, because the gym, heating the gym is the largest source of heat in that, room that the heat in that building. And it's largely not programmed and not kept under tight control. So that's, that would be simple. Down long term, he suggests an actual more efficient heating system, but that's something we can look at in another year's budget down the line. But I think money-wise, we could better get an energy audit. We could better insulate this building. We could, when we put new siding on this building, put in at least a half an inch of insulation behind the new siding is going to be a step in the right direction, and it's the right time to do it when we're doing the new siding. But there's a couple steps involved to getting to a final cost on this, which would be getting the engineering done on the fix for the north side of the building, having that added into this, and the cost of an energy audit. Maine Energy Pros has done work for the town before. They do insulation also, and we had energy audits on some of the fire stations in years past. And Maine Energy Pros was the firm that blew the insulation into the fire station in the lakes, perhaps elsewhere, I forget. But so they could do that if we are able to get to that point. potentially by the end of the year. If we can, there's money in the capital fund that we would draw from for this, that would cover potentially all of this. And we're gonna have to spend money on it at some point. One other point that when we looked at this from an estimating standpoint, the porch, part of the reason why we're doing all this this repair and replacing the siding with composite shingles up above and sort of a composite clapboard down below is so we won't have to paint the thing as often as we do. But the porch is all wood, the decking is all wood, the railings are wood, the posts are wood. There's a couple of posts that are rotted that are gonna have to be replaced, and that's figured into this bid already. But it's my recommendation that we don't replace the siding on the building under the porch, because that's shielded from the sun, and it hasn't taken the weather beating that the rest of the building has taken. Someday, when the flooring of the porch wears out and the railings of the porch wear out, we could look at replacing that with a composite Trex-like decking, Trex-like railing. Right now, we don't need to do that, and where that's under cover, away from the sun, yes, the town would still have to paint the railings, paint the decking, paint the interior of the walls, the siding walls underneath the porch, but I'm guessing we would have to do that, like every 10 years maybe, instead of every 5 years or 6 years that we were doing the building. But I think that's wise to just do that, because it saves us money from having to do the siding on the walls of the building under the porch. We are gonna, figured into this bid is the steps coming off the main entrance facing the parking lot and the front entrance facing the lake. And when we do a redo of the north side of the building, there'd be the steps, and the entrance there would be changed to some degree. And figured into this already is the steps are being rebuilt with tracks, because they're exposed, they're out, they get the most use, and they're out outside of underneath the porch, exposed to the sun, and so that's actually being done. And it's not really lattice, but the covering underneath the deck is figured into this bid already to be replaced with a Trex-like material, because that's already started to go by, because it's so close to the ground. So that I think covers most of this information.
So
Sounds like we're gonna have to rebid it.
Well,
Do this new work,
this is what I understood. So you got two bids.
Yep.
One was $137,000, way up. The other one, we've done work with and all of that, so they've got a certain amount of work that they can do. What I understand that Ernie's recommending is that what we do is do the work that was bid on, and as we move forward with that and we get more analysis, we will come back and perhaps bid other parts of that project until we get the whole thing done. Remember, there's a lot of rotting wood behind some of those sidings. We don't know how much, except for where we've identified it. So there might be plus or minus, because that's cost plus. So right now we're looking at about 48,000, 44,000, whatever that number was, or 54,000. So that would be the initial amount of work, and then you'd get your siding on 3 walls. You get it. There's nothing in there for it. You'd have to take more money and put it into, if you wanted to look at doing the extension, which is necessary for storage. I get all of that. And some of the work over the door, doing all of that, you'd have to get an engineering design. So that's where we're at. And I think it's clear that the 137, although they called me up and said, oh, we're willing to talk about that. Yeah. It's clear that the 54,000 is. Imagine that.
The 54 is for 3 sides.
50,
yeah, both of 3 sides.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Yeah. Now there is another thing too. Both entry doors from the doors entering from the facing 27 and the doors facing the parking lot are nearing
They need to be
replaced. My thought on that is perhaps we could, engage the town in some way, and maybe somebody might, offer to,
But that's not part of this bid.
That's not part of this, but that's something else on the building that needs to be taken place.
Alright, so first thought is that I would love to somehow not have a necessarily tight history on what we've done for the Center for All Seasons. But it seems like a handful of years ago, we were attempting to remedy the heating of the building. And we put a new boiler in, Bruce Bush put in.
That was 2010.
2010, okay, so, put a brand new boiler then, and I think it was, this is 20 years, this is gonna be the best we can do. We have revisited the heating issue, the escaping heat issue several times. And we have had folks come in and give us the best thing that we could do to take care of this. When we were re-roofing it, we were having the same conversation. And it feels like we keep going like we're on a hamster wheel, and we're not actually getting ahead of it. So we're taking opinions and we're going off from them, but I don't know how we best get.
But here's, the building is a beautiful building, but it wasn't designed to conserve heat, nor was the construction that was required necessarily put in the way it was supposed to have been done.
Because there were some corners cut.
Because there were corners cut.
Right.
This effort, taking in all that you said about other efforts and stuff, this particular effort, I had requested that we get the exterior painted. It hasn't been done for another 10 years. It should be done every 5 to 7 years or whatever. The recommendation, I believe, is 5 years. During that conversation, there was this whole issue about, well, geez, if you're gonna paint it every 5 years, in X number of years, you're gonna have $100,000 put into it, right? So the question was, can we save money by doing long-term with more permanent material, or to save the cost of having it redone and save maintenance costs? That was where this whole article came from. That's where we started a committee on it. The committee ended up without getting input from contractors. Now we have 2 inputs and some recommendations. And Ernie was one of the members on the committee. The other committee members kind of melted away, so to speak. Gary Foss isn't here anymore. I wasn't able to go to the actual walk around, so.
Okay, so what I was gonna finish saying then was that we have revisited this several times, and it seems like it might be in the best interest of the town if we address this project over, much as we've done in the past with a 5-year plan on paving. But a long-term plan for the buildings in Belgrade. And how do we, start scoping out a plan? Like if we've got to, if we're gonna put this composite siding on, I think we had talked about the trim. So we had two sections of siding that were guaranteed for 20 years, but the trim board we were discussing was not guaranteed.
No, they were gonna
Trim board is gonna be a Trex product.
Right, but initially it wasn't. I remember we were looking at it, was like, this is gonna be 5 years and the rest is 20, so we should have everything be 20.
It's really difficult to ideally it'd be great to just take all the wood off this building and put it on composite, but to do that, it's just.
Did the original RFP include all 4 sides of the building?
The original RFP essentially said, please provide an estimate for the exterior work of the building, and we met with them to tell them what we wanted done. So, because it's really hard to kind of just throw it out there without, I don't have specs. So, in terms of Melanie's comment, you could certainly come up with a 5-year plan. Over 5 years, you improve the whole building. This initial effort,
And I just agree with that, especially in light of, what you laid out. And that's not what we're considering tonight. We don't do something full on without them having it. Yeah, that's
right.
I'm concerned about the north side of the building, that something needs to be done.
Addressing the rot that's there.
Yes,
And,
get it up to snuff on the outside, but I think, just like we said at the meeting, I was with Ernie at the meeting, we said that in all kinds of gonna probably have to be rebid, because it's all over.
after,
We can do that. I mean, I'm guessing, and.
I think you got it.
well, yeah, you would have to rebid that, but I think we understood that.
But I mean, it's just, it really didn't make sense after everything that we go through every winter at that end of the building,
Absolutely.
it just doesn't make sense to.
So we
sign
get an
it
estimate on
And then fix it.
And Kaufman
So,
doesn't work
Can it
with
be
school.
can it be rebid and work this before?
I think it can. I think, ideally, we're gonna have, we're gonna, Hammond's can't do the engineering on it, so we're gonna move that to Kaufman.
He's already doing some work for us.
Yeah, so, I'm guessing it wouldn't be an expensive cost to have him, put something together for us, at least preliminarily. But we need it, so we do that, and then, yeah, we put it back out to bid. These fellows, I would recommend obviously we go with their bid for the work that we've done, and I've already, I talked with them about it, and obviously they would bid on the north end of the building, and by that time, so I'm guessing we're gonna give this to Coffin right off quick, and maybe by the end of June, I'd like to think, we might have something back from them, and so maybe in July, we could rebid this perhaps, the north side of the building, so that we're not gonna do this work until September anyway. So, but to Melanie's point, yes, over the years, there's been a lot of, like when they did the metal roofing, the idea was, that was gonna solve all the snow problems. And to some degree, it solved the snow problems, but it just made these huge ice flows slide off the roof quicker and break the roofs below. So we didn't deal with the heating issue so much. Yes, we've done a furnace. I don't think the furnace needs to be changed. It's just some of the way the heat is processed through the building needs to be changed. That was Bruce's thought, but that's a process. That's something we're going to have to do. Look at a later date.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, I feel like it's not the only town facility that we have, but I feel like it would benefit the town if we laid out the properties that we had and we said, okay, what's our 20-year plan for maintenance on these buildings?
Didn't we do a survey of the town buildings?
We do it every fall. I've done it twice now, and yes, this has been one of the ones. The only way you're gonna really get to that issue, well, you can get that issue in a number of ways, and one is to just set up look at the Parks and Rec to come up with a 20-year plan on maintenance, or whoever.
Like the fire department's kind of doing that, because they're planning to do
One of the ways that the town could get at all of its facilities is to have a long-term capital improvement program where you set aside so much money every year, identify your priorities and set it up front, which is something I proposed back in 2010, but we haven't looked at it.
So we're gonna look at that again. But,
we can vote tonight on
this.
Yes.
Yes.
And can we put I was gonna ask if you could put together a list and put it in writing. What all the work needs to be done then. That's for future.
Yeah.
And then we'll rebid the north side.
Yep.
Right, can you work that out, Dennis?
Well, because it does say in their bid, nothing to be replaced at this time except for the porch, fascia and soffit.
They both said it's just a 3-side.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna vote tonight on the maps of 3 sides of the building. Alright, we're gonna rebid the north side. Yep. It is north side.
Yep.
And then go from there.
When it comes time.
It comes time. Well,
And
hopefully we do it this year.
Hope so.
Hopefully we get it done before winter.
Yeah, and quite possibly we could have an energy audit done as well,
That's not gonna live.
No, but that's part of this,
Well, it's outside the parameters of the vote tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's just do this for now.
Good.
I'm just trying to give you the.
No, I appreciate that, Ernie, but. Alright.
Alright, so I make a motion that we accept the proposal, hold on a second, I gotta find my. Main Energy Pros, I'm like, which little tab was this?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Made second.
$54,800.
Okay. Assume there's no further discussion. Is there further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
I think we've had enough.
5-0. Got it followed, protocol.
Yep.
All right. Good, that's done. Moving on.
We have the auditing now.
Auditing and the.
Now, we had skipped some other stuff, right?
Well, there's one other one.
What did we skip?
Well, we haven't, we're gonna go to the audit next.
Gonna go to the audit.
We have the
Cleaning's out for the water.
The cleaning.
We just
Yeah,
didn't
we haven't got
We
there
got
yet.
there yet,
I
okay.
moved and I asked you all for permission to move the paving ahead because of the
Yep.
guys.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's okay, I was just thinking we missed it.
All right.
Okay, request for annual auditing services.
We sent out the RFP, we got one response back, the response is for $8,200, $8,400 over the next 3 years with, 2 additional years at, a better price per year increase. So, I've looked into it, they, as I said in the memo, they're doing services up to 58 communities. They're well recognized in the field, and it's the only bid we got.
How does that compare to what was said?
I believe it's about the, I was gonna ask for that price and I didn't get it, but,
That sounds like the same number.
it's about the same number as what we were paying RBO, I think it's, so, but it's the only bid.
RKO is a good company.
Yeah, RKO's, yeah.
Now, the only thing, didn't we have the auditor that we were using, weren't there some things that the auditor wasn't able to audit for various reasons?
And give us what we needed.
What's that?
If, remember
I don't know.
correctly, she wasn't able to give us what we needed.
Right, I thought there was something there.
I don't know.
All right, so we're voting on that one. It was what's the name of it?
RKO.
Do you recommend her then?
Well, I looked at the back, I don't know them, but my understanding is they're a really good outfit.
I have worked with, 2 other organizations that have used them.
And you
and have
recommend?
not had any complaints about
I'll make a motion, we accept this.
I'll second that.
So we're doing it for 5 years, or exactly what we're doing?
Well, I think those 2 other years are an extension.
Options, I think.
I believe that's.
Are they options or are they part of this bid, or part of?
Well, if we accept them now, we get the better price.
Well, what if we don't think that they're great auditors?
Well, that's why I'm saying that, I'll talk to them and see if we can get that as an option, but
I mean, I guess mine would be that we take them on for the next year and evaluate how we feel about it, and then determine whether or not we do
it's up to you.
a multi-year contract at that point. But I wouldn't give somebody brand new, hey, come on in for 5 years.
Well, they're not
Well,
brand new in the
happen.
field.
Well, but brand new to us.
All right, let's just vote, we'll vote on the 3 years, and let the 2-year extension go until a later date, till we're satisfied. Need everybody's satisfied with that?
I would be.
Okay.
I'll make that motion, go for 1 year then.
No, we said we go for 3 years.
Oh, go for the 3 years?
3-year contract, and then talk about the extension.
Well, I was just reading about that, it says, up to 5-year deal here. What's the contract? The last 5 years would be.
Do we have anything in the contract says we can dismiss it if it's,
We don't have a contract. Right now.
All right, so if we vote on this, you're gonna put together a contract.
I'm gonna talk to them, tell them that we accepted the bid, and then we're going to develop an agreement.
An agreement. And the agreement says, we can dismiss you if we don't like your work.
Virtually, yes, I think that's in all of our contracts, if I'm
All
not
right.
mistaken.
well, that's what I'm saying.
I'm
Even if we
just
go-
saying,
Even if we go with,
it needs to be in there.
even if we go with the 5 years, we can still just
Right.
get rid of it. If there's a price advantage in going 5 years now, then we need to consider that.
Well, you don't know,
We don't know.
I mean, it's a price advantage the way they put it forward.
It's only $50.
All right, let's go with 3 years.
I'll make that.
3 years, and somebody second, who second?
I think.
Okay, made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last item, warrant.
Besides the warrant. We got the clean,
As I said, the last item before the warrant.
yeah, exactly.
Request for proposals, cleaning and janitorial services.
Right.
Any?
I put together a quick analysis we had 2 commercial firms apply, I believe they're commercial firms. Paula Welton Service by Paula Welton at $13,020. Jenny George at $12,350 based on their fees. And then we have a gentleman, a hardworking guy, who works at the transfer station. He's looking for more hours. He looking at, if we increased his pay to $12.50, I worked out what the cost of the cleaning services themselves would be, And then there's a certain amount, if you look at the note, that increasing his pay to $12.50 would incur an additional cost of somewhere around, I think it was $2,400?
Yeah.
$2,460. So that would put the hourly the actual cost increase up to whatever it was. And then I'm estimating about $400 for a vacuum cleaner and $500 for materials, for cleaning materials. If you wanted to do something like this, I believe we could save upwards of $5,000 to $7,000. If you wanted to hire someone, I mean like someone that's already on board.
Why we would need to decrease his hours at the transfer station?
Because if you go over a certain number of hours, he's considered, according to our policy, full-time or permanent part-time, and they get benefits. So how you want to do it.
In other words, you're gonna have another full-time employee.
Well, that's why we're doing it.
I mean, if you went.
I mean, he's gonna get more time, more dollars. And,
I would think you'd want to go with the one that's gonna save us most money, but.
I would think so too. Does he have any experience in cleaning?
I really don't know, but I believe so. I mean, I can't, he's done everything.
He's been a janitor before.
Oh.
Well, he has been a janitor.
You know, and he's very personable.
He's
you know,
just a hard working.
He really is.
The reason why I put
But I don't wanna,
I think it's-
I also don't wanna feel, however, that the town of Belgrade is trying to figure out how we can potentially maximize our employees but also shafting them.
Well, we're not really shafting, because overall, he's gonna be making more money a year.
Yeah, and that's what he's looking to do, so.
Did he agree to this, if this?
Yeah, he actually came to me and talked to me about it. There were other people, I mean, actually, Cheryl looked at doing it, but that would put her over overtime. We'd have to pay her overtime. And that just wouldn't have worked out for the town.
I get it. Well, I guess I would make the motion that we accept Elvin's proposal, because I think it's a step in the right direction. We can see how it goes. I mean, if it doesn't work out for some reason, we can always go back to another cleaning outfit at a later date. But I think it's, I'm in favor of it.
Okay, I'll second that.
Very good.
No problem with insurance or anything like that.
He's like, just like now, he's a part-time employee of ours.
Let it break something.
Just like
Just like if he had to break something now.
Okay.
Like the skid steer, you just pay.
Like skid steer, you're not gonna use a skid steer here.
He might.
Did you get that floor cleaner
I
in
talked
here?
to, just as an aside here, I talked to Kenny about reducing his hours at the transfer station. That can be kind of done because.
He's got another employee.
Yeah, and like the hours that he'd be reduced would be on Thursdays or on sort of off days when the peak times, that he'd still be at the transfer station during peak times. Wednesdays.
Okay.
Yep.
We didn't go yet.
Okay.
Move and second, we need to vote.
All in favor? Good, congratulations.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before you leave item H, and I'm talking about number 4.
Yeah.
I would like to, as a member of the Budget Committee, to request a reconciliation between the amount of money that we raised under this article for road work, which was $1,390,585, and the sum that we agreed upon, that you agreed upon tonight, $989,000, plus the $67,000 for financing and legal costs.
Plus preparation for costs.
Well, no, I'd like to see where that difference is being funded and where it goes. See a budget for it.
Well, we worked that out in the road committee. We're the ones that recommended that budget.
I would like to see if all of that $1,300,000 is going to be spent or not. And how much
we can do that because it won't be spent.
And how much of it.
Yeah, it won't be spent.
And where it comes from.
Yeah.
Okay?
All right, do we go to the warrant?
Yes.
Warrant, who's got the warrant?
Melanie does now.
All right, warrant number 56, so a total amount of $517,778.56. It's for RSU 18.
Dick was taking care of the warrant and, inadvertently left this off.
Oh, yeah, no, he said, yeah.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion, this is for the school budget, all those in favor?
We've got much of a choice on this.
No, you know, 5-0, good.
All right, then we have warrant number 54. Do we have a warrant number 55?
Yeah, it's a good question.
We got 56 and 54.
The little ones are in between, and I forget what Melanie explained they were, but is it, oh, a motor vehicle, isn't it?
I think yeah, there was a motor vehicle one, I don't know when he sent that out, but I'm pretty sure that's probably.
Because Dennis signs those.
I signed those.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on 54?
Okay, so 54's warrant total was $48,529.36.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The Center for All Seasons pool fence, I thought we said $3,000, and it came out to $3,360.
Well, actually, I don't remember 3,000, but, it was a proposal that the fence company put in. When we were discussing it, we had
We
to,
weren't exceeding what we had voted on,
And it
and I
was
had
right-
3,000 in my head for
here's the price right here. It was last meeting, and it's,
let's see, fence for Center for All Seasons, repair, move to take $3,000 from Center for All Seasons reserve to pay for the repairs.
because I was given a price, and I can't see, I don't see the price here. Andy gave us that price, and I thought it was in a proposal, and the proposal's right here. I'm looking for the,
Because he said he would honor the price.
yeah, $3,360.04, this was the one that was approved, as I understood it. At the last
What
meeting.
they came and asked for at the last meeting was $3,000.
Well, this was the proposal that we used at the last meeting.
This is what's on the synopsis.
And this came in, I can't help with this, all I'm saying is this was a proposal that was put in 2018, when we first were looking at it in the budget.
I went and surveyed it today, it's been done, they did a nice job.
Yeah, no, all I'm saying is that we approved 3,000 and we expended $3,360.04. So
Well-
then somewhere along the line, we need to authorize the over expenditure.
Okay, well then, somehow the number got to 3,000, I can't recollect
Where was
why.
Where was that coming, what was?
But the actual proposal, well, that would come out of the reserve, their reserves. And the actual proposal, which was done last September, and he agreed to honor it, was for $3,360.04. Because that's right here, I don't, that's what I thought was put forward in last meeting. Why the 3,000 is there, I don't know. We can go back to and listen, or we can authorize the amount.
I'm fine with it. They did a nice job, they hauled away the old fence.
Well, they want to be, we need to authorize the over.
Right, we need to authorize the over
Okay,
expenditure.
I'll make the motion, we authorize the overage.
Okay, made it, second.
$360.04.
And it will come out of Center for All
Seasons reserves.
I will second that.
Good.
That's my point.
Need a second, all in favor?
I don't know where that came from.
Looks good, nice job.
Okay. Any other questions? I have questions, if nobody else does.
Sorry, Morris, this one's for you. Under equipment, public work rentals, $418.28. Oh, sorry, you need that. I think they're all, it just is all under one check, I think, to Morris, 18,758.
What's your number?
What's that? It's on page 2, I think.
Check.
My check number 18,758.
18,758.
Yep. I was just wondering what we were renting. We've got a handful of rentals. One is 418 and one is 1757.
Okay, so here's the whole package. rate per hour. Dunn Point Road, 1 ton, and then like mileage. And then there was the grader for 5 hours and mileage, and the 1 ton truck. And then there was a grader for 3.5 hours. And 1 ton.
Rentals
Yeah.
from Morris?
Yeah, it gives us the state rate.
Gotcha. Oh, and one last question. 18,773, no spill gas, what is no spill gas?
Hold on.
Gas can.
It's a can that doesn't spill, I guess.
Oh.
The way that, there we
Okay,
go.
cause I'm like, where do I get this gas that doesn't smell?
The no spill gas station, isn't it?
Alright, I'm good.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I got a couple. Page 4,
What's the check number?
18770. Kenneth Work on Youth Sports Contract. What?
Every year, and it's approved in the warrant, every year we give $3,000 for the mowing of the lawn.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. What
They
So
just
they don't have to
they
mow
get
it.
a day.
Every year they do it, and we give them a certain amount of money subsidized.
Yeah, but you explained what it was. 18768, Ford regular, Ford regular, what does that mean?
Hold on,
Yes.
probably gas, but
Ford regular, what does it say Ford regular?
I don't know, I'm gonna have to look at it.
Fuel.
Irving, 768.
Yes.
Well, I think
Yeah, it's gasoline.
Why they put it that way?
Well, cause there's Ford regular and then there's APD regular. They're different in price, there's
Someday I'll
2411,
figure out
22.
why they write these things. All right. I have nothing else.
I think that, I think on page, 5,
Check number.
well, it's 18783. I think one of those should be marked as a fire department, one of those trucks.
83.
I think they've got it coming out of, facilities.
Okay, hold on, it may be.
And I think it,
Love cut, welded
Is it
frame,
the GMC though? Right,
Yes.
because it's carried over to the next page.
Yeah, I know.
that's all the GMC.
yeah, but one's a 2001.
Oh, yeah, there's the
one's
brush,
08.
brush truck.
The brush truck, so that should be under the fire department,
Okay, I'll have that change made.
just so it doesn't come out of the wrong account.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, so we'll have to,
Nice catch. All right, anything else? All right, let's call a vote. All in favor? 5-0, thank you very much. Before we, I guess we'll have a point where we're ready to adjourn, so,
Tell me when you update.
oh, that's right, update us, we didn't have much.
don't forget to, this one. To let me, or to talk to Nick or I'll talk to Nick. I did not, prepare a list of updates for you, but I will be preparing, an overall, project kind of status, for you as a summary, and then I'll be putting files together for whoever's the new town manager. And so I'll be doing that over the next few weeks. I don't think you'll be able to have a town manager on board for at least 2 or 3 more weeks, I don't know, depending on when you want to do the interviews. So,
I don't agree with you, I want them all.
Okay. Anything more for that?
that was all I wanted to say.
I would like to, on the subject of new town manager, we need to pick a date. Number one, I'd like soon to send the invitations out to whomever we want to send them out to, which means we have to go through the list of candidates. And what I'm gonna suggest is you all go through the list of the applications you have, prioritize it, in other words, your first choice, second choice, and so forth. And then what we usually do is take the first 3 or 4 or 5, 3 or 3 is probably usually enough. And we'll sit, and those are the ones we'll invite to come in. We go through those, if we don't find a candidate, an acceptable candidate, then we continue on down the list.
It's gonna be a little bit tricky though, because we have a handful of them that have come in that are out of state.
Well, we'll try to accommodate them. Number one, first thing we have to do is decide whether those folks are doing the money.
In some cases,
Right.
we, like, just as an example, I was on a librarian thing, there was a candidate from Colorado, who just got on the phone, you know, when we had an initial, you know, consultation with her, and then, she turned out to be, one of the two candidates, I think, or something, and the second time around we interviewed her, we Skyped with her, and
Well, that's what I was gonna say, if we did a
potentially
Skype
could set something
interview
like
or.
that up, if we chose to pick somebody we wanted to interview from Texas or Illinois or wherever they come from.
Yeah.
We can handle it without us.
So, are we just gonna, at our next meeting, are we gonna have our top 3 or 4, or what's our
Well,
plan?
that was the second part of my question, what do we wanna do, do we wanna get together
We usually do.
in the
Between now and then, yeah, cause then it's gonna take a bit of time for us to get something set up and do.
Yeah, well, we need to pick our candidates or potential.
Yeah, that's what we need to do.
Pick them, get together, so we agree on those, and then we'll put the call out to them.
Yep.
Okay, and hopefully they'll be able to respond within 2 weeks from that date. And we'll also pick a date that we're gonna set up for the date that we wanna set up the interviews.
Do we wanna meet here next Tuesday at 6:30?
Is anybody available to do that?
Let me look and see.
I can. 28th.
It just kind of be a quick meeting, more or less, to just go over this.
Yeah,
If we can all agree on. That'd be big thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
3 or 4.
Well,
Usually it
they'll
doesn't
kind of
take
bring
long. You
I
go
mean, if we come up
through.
with 5, then we can probably whittle it down to 3. So that's
next Tuesday is 28th, right?
It usually doesn't take long. You go through it and
I could do
they
that.
want $200,000 a year, and throw that one right off the bat.
Okay,
So
so
Denny was getting 3.
we're all.
$3.
Yeah.
Everybody's good with the 28th?
28th, 6:30.
Okay.
Here.
Wait a minute, let me just check my,
It's Tuesday, are you down, Boston?
I don't know, we have to check this all the time. Please.
And then we'll just set the dates after we have that.
But yeah, at that date, if we come up with, then we can send out notice to the 3 candidates we want.
If you have to go to Boston, can you phone in? Cause we'll just
Phone home, Dave.
phone home, yeah, cause we'll just.
I mean, if you look this over, Rick, and then you come up with your 3 or 4 nominees.
No, I don't have, I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be June 5th, 6th, 18th. There's another one. I think June 19th, geez, we'll have to stay there overnight again, and then the 23rd.
But you can be here on the 28th.
Yes,
Okay,
looks like it right now, unless they change something.
alright,
Well, it's in on my calendar.
28th. We'll worry about the other dates.
But if I could just add one thing, now, I intend to leave on the June 1st. If you need support so that you'll have someone overseeing the office, I'm more than willing to come back and forth, whatever. It's just up to you. I mean, I would have to keep the designation of the town manager to sign things and all that. So,
I'd like to see that if we can do that until we hire someone.
now, this doesn't mean I'm gonna be in every day. It doesn't mean that
You know what's good for you.
it just means I'll be coming in
Set that tape.
Don't threaten when we need them, right?
and we'll work out whatever arrangements you wanna work out.
$3, you just say
Whatever you wanna do.
And we're already paying you $100,000 a year, I just read that.
Yeah, that's another thing I should probably just mention. There's a lot of people that don't know my personal life, and they like to talk about it, and they like to make partisan comments. And recently there was a letter, and I'm not gonna name names, that was, in my view, a partisan letter that basically didn't like the fact that I was running as a state legislator and stayed on as a town manager. There have been, over the last 2, 3, 4 sessions, several I say several because there's more than one, town managers who are working as state legislators. It's not an impossible task. The difficulty over the last month and a half was the unexpected departure and illnesses of certain people. So that's been more difficult for me to handle, and it's taken a struggle. I've asked staff to really work hard. They've done a yeoman's job. I have to appreciate Cheryl, Nick, people that have, Andy, Ken, all of the folks who are out there working hard to make all of this work. So, yeah, there's sharp partisan comments. It didn't bother me. Well, I won't say it didn't bother me. It did bother me a little bit because I've worked hard to try to keep this thing smooth. And that's enough on that. The other thing I'll say is there's a few projects that I would like to continue working on that I said I would get done, and I haven't. So that includes the personnel manual. I'll work with whoever's the new incoming town manager to give him all of the stuff that I've got completed. Or her. And you know, a couple other items I'll identify in my memo to you guys in the next couple weeks. I just want you to understand that I'm here to help. I'm not here to try to make money off the town. I'm not here to try to skirt any work. I try to come in late at night, early in the morning, Saturdays, sometimes Sundays. But I think the work's getting done, unless Cheryl thinks there's some, or other people think there's problems. Yeah, sometimes it's a little late. Sometimes I don't get a meeting right that instant with someone, but that happened before. So it's not.
I want to thank you publicly for all you've done for us. You've got us back on track again after some rough waters here. It was real rough. Believe me.
Well, hopefully it stays on track because I think it can. I think the staff is starting to coalesce. I think it's important that they coalesce, and I think it's going to be good over the next.
The other thing I wanted to say when Doodle was here tonight, that I'm impressed with that cemetery already.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was down there Monday morning with them, they were out in the pouring rain doing the first burial. That was his first job. I looked at that and I said, man, you got some work ahead of you. And then I went by the dinner. You know,
Things are popping up, and there was an issue today about flags or missing flags or lost, or maybe they were thrown away for the roadway in the cemetery. So he ordered, and there was a question about the money. I first looked at it and I said, Cheryl, what the hell did you do? But actually it was the flagpole, the attachment, and all those devices were either lost or taken with the poles when the old poles went away. So we had to get new attachment. So we spent some money today on flags and stuff. So sounds like it's good, huh? Yeah, up on Cemetery Road when we had the parade.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, he was right out mowing today, right with the.
Yeah, he's a hard worker.
Who's doing the Memorial Day service, like who's emceeing it?
That's done by Gary now. The question, I believe, the other thing I would say, we got approved for a flyover, the KC 135 over the.
High school band coming.
We have a high school band coming. The flyover will be at.
Usually does it.
Yeah, I think it is Miss Lawrence.
And the flowers are all taken care of.
I believe all of the flowers are taken, whatever is on that list, I believe is done, but we'll have to check with the flowers tomorrow. I think that they were.
Since, you know, it's Memorial Weekend.
Yeah, cause they gotta be planting them right off.
Yeah. Well, normally there's volunteers that do that from the cemetery committee, and that gets done pretty quickly.
But tomorrow Wednesday.
Yeah, we keep
Right, I was like, I seem to recall volunteering for that a handful of times in the past.
So-
when we were a little short.
So the flyover is gonna be at 10 o'clock. I'm trying to find the names of the pilot and the directions coming from and all that. So we'll see how that's done.
One last question before we adjourn. Did we ever get anything from Jason Carey on the?
I asked Jason to give me information. He said, if you want that information, you can go out and bid. He says, I'm giving you a good product.
Let's put it out to bid then.
No, let's get up in things.
I think he's gonna do it.
Is he gonna give us the information? Because that's the last thing. So, it's up to you.
Well, then we put it out to proposal, you know.
Well, I'm not.
We can vote on it if you want, but I mean,
Well, the last time you said ask him, but the last time at the meeting, my understanding was there was 2 votes taken, right? Initially, you were going to go ahead and just do it. Melanie said, well, why can't we do it? And I think, Attorney, you said, well, you made the motion to do the bid, but asking. So I asked him.
Well, because what we requested in the previous meeting was that we actually knew what we were getting. And in all the years I've been on this board, we've never made a request of someone that we were paying for a service to tell us what we were getting and had not one person refuse. So whatever his reason is irrelevant.
Well, here's the point. He did give us the numbers of devices and all that. I wouldn't know which one was good or not from anything. I don't know if the board would. I don't think the board would, and we talked about that. I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna debate that, but that's up to you guys. You want me to tell him to go forward or not?
What was the total?
It was 2,180.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you wanna vote on it?
Voted on it, didn't
Yeah, I thought we voted, but you wanted me to ask, so I did.
Well, the vote that we took was that we would go forward with it if the questions that we asked were answered.
Well, that wasn't the way I understood it, but that may be. So, why don't
you do a vote to clarify?
It says, board would like sound system proposals, so this was the first meeting, no action taken, board would like more information, including a list of equipments, name brands, quantity of pieces, is it to be wireless and prices?
I make a motion.
That's the synopsis. If you listen to the recording, you'll hear what I said.
Well, I've got sound system for select board meeting, motion made by Ernst to accept the proposal with the questions asked to be answered. 4-1 again. Non-seconded.
Well, clearly, we're gonna get a receipt for this.
Yeah.
And it's gonna list the items that we have. He has said that he would be, more than willing to be available as a trainer.
Yeah, he's got so many hours in for maintenance and training and all that.
So.
Guys, if you wanna go ahead and ask a question from someone who we're contracting with something for the town, ask them for specifications and being told no, and that we're still gonna go ahead and give them the taxpayers' money, no matter how irrelevant we think $2,000 around that is. The fact of the matter is it's disrespectful to this board to have requested information from a potential contractor and being straight up told no.
Well, let me offer an alternative kind of comment. Jason is an expert in his field, right? He's offered to do this, and I believe the price is significantly lower than he would charge on a normal basis. When I asked him to provide the information that was requested, he says, doesn't anyone trust me? I'm giving you guys a deal. And I don't know what he said to you, Ricky, because I know he talked to you too. And he says, if you don't trust me, he says, I'm the expert, you wouldn't know anything that I told you. And I said, that's true, I wouldn't. So I probably wouldn't know because you get to. So anyhow, that's what, he felt a little bit hurt probably, I don't know, if anything, but I'm not trying to diss.
Yeah.
I understand your thing.
I think it's disrespectful.
But
And
that's.
I think that it's disrespectful and it's slightly arrogant for someone to assume that there is no one on this board or no one who's been in the audience here at any point in time who has any knowledge of musical equipment like he does. There are other people that do this, and I'm happy to ask other people. They may not live in the town of Belgrade, but I honestly, Denny, in all the years that I've done this, we've never ever been told no.
Well, we've never really had anyone push for the answer. We've accepted individuals in town on certain requests. Well, I'll tell you what, this isn't going anywhere for me. I'm not gonna debate it. If you want me to tell him no, I'll tell him no, and then someone will have to write an RFP. I'll try to get it done if I can.
I think it's up to the board to decide if we wanna put it out to RFP.
No.
So,
I think we just go ahead, I understand, I hear what you're saying.
I hear what you're saying.
If we refused to do business with everybody in this town who was arrogant, we'd never get anything.
Or who refused to give us information. If Morse decided that we were all too dumb to know what he was giving us for specifications, and we all just said, you know what, Morse is a hell of a guy. I'm sure he's gonna do anything he can in the best interest. It is nothing against Jason Carey. It has to do with the fact that we asked for what we were getting for the taxpayers' money, and we were flat out refused. We don't get a receipt after the fact.
After the fact, we're gonna know what we have, we're gonna be trained in it, and it's gonna work, and it's gonna be a good deal for the town.
And you know,
And
and
we
I
can put
hope
it out
that
to
that
RFP.
message gets out to the townspeople, that we don't actually expect the
We
answer
don't have to
when we
put
ask the question.
small amounts like this out to RFP. If we Alright, feel like it, so that's how this goes, I mean.
The motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
I
second.
love it, let's do it.
Did we answer the Jason
I
Carey?
don't know, I haven't got an answer yet.
Go ahead, go forward.
Should we vote on it, or
We
what?
voted on it.
We did vote.
We
I will see
voted
if I can
on
get
it,
him a
that
list.
we were gonna get the
I'll see if I can get
information.
We're gonna get the information, we're gonna know what we're gonna have.
I don't wanna get in the middle, I've been in the middle.
I don't have a problem talking to Jason myself, I've known him for a million years, I'm not scared of
Go right
anything.
ahead.
Well, it's not a matter of being afraid.
And I would say,
You
take
wanna be
it-
scared of me.
I would say this,
You
we're
wanna be
not
scared of
saying
me.
like, for God's sakes, this
But,
is,
but
we're the
Melanie,
ones who are
Melanie,
sorry.
here's my, please, understand that I'm not. My point
Let me
is,
tell you what he told me.
It's too bad all the townspeople don't come. I asked him, why don't you bid on this? He bid on it, he gave us a price.
the hell out of you.
My understanding is half the price or more than what we would have gotten on another bid. So, I don't understand the need for the detail, but I get why you're asking, but I don't understand the need for the detail, I don't distrust.
Breakfast now.
But I'm willing